begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is Chris. I'm here with Ben for Tyrus Lane Missive. This is an episode talking all about what. Wait, no, we're not talking about Willow tonight. We're talking maybe about that later on. I'm just so hyped up about the show. So between that and Indiana Jones and the Destiny and all that kind of stuff, Indiana Jones 5, I'm already screwing up the title, The Dial of Destiny. Yeah, this is the kind of show we're shooting tonight. Just kind of off the hip. We have some things planned. Milton's going to try to join us, so we're going to start this thing off just me and Ben. How's it going, Ben?
Good. I mean, another fun week, even though Star Wars content has ended. It seems like it's only just beginning. Like, a lot of things are picking up as we'll go through tonight, and then, of course, we'll talk about some of the other Lucasfilm type things and, just whatever else comes to mind on this kind of miscellaneous show tonight.
Yeah, we're really celebrating Lucasfilm tonight. And a good thing I never named this podcast specifically with something Star Wars. Yeah, Outer Rim, you can trace that to Star Wars, but it doesn't mean it has to be Star Wars all the time. So this might be a monumental episode tonight where we talk about things that aren't exactly Star Wars in sort of a main topic sort of thing. But as you see, our main topic is going to be Andor tonight. We are talking about the season in its entirety, all 12 episodes, how we felt, the positives, the negatives, what we took from the season, what we're going to glean about what happens in the second and the final season coming out in 2024. So we have a lot to go through, as well as catching up on some big news stories that has cropped up on us over the last week. Just really talking about the news that broke this week, because it seems as soon as a Lucasfilm project has ended, they just churn up the marketing for the next big thing. So we're going to be talking about Jedi Survivor, maybe some things that Daisy Ridley has teased, as well as Mandalorian getting a season 3 premiere date. All of that on Outer Rim Transmission, episode number 85. As we always do here, we go live every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. You can check us out and join in on the discussion in the chat. And we do have super chats enabled to support the show financially. And as always, you can download this podcast on any of your podcast apps, from Apple to Google to Spotify. We are on there and love you guys to rate us, to let us know what you think about the show. So with that off the top, we're going to dive into our week here. I'll start things off. Been pretty busy. Finished my review for Star Wars Convergence. Really enjoyed it by Zoraida Cordova. So I have that review on the channel here. That's the latest High Republic novel, High Republic Phase 2 Quest of the Jedi from Del Rey. So there you go. Other than that, I've just been busy playing World of Warcraft. Dragonflight expansion, I think it's the 8th or the 9th expansion, came out this week. So been dabbling in that. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't too eventful of a week in Star Wars for me. More of I guess you would say kind of having to think like a Jedi on some things this week and the past couple weeks, really. Just because so basically over the last few months, I've been dealing with kind of a nagging kind of cartilage strain, I guess you would say, around the sternum area. And basically I eventually basically took all last week off from lifting, or basically heavy lifting, and just took all that off, reassessed my entire lifting program, and then basically just have to do the whole patience thing. And I reset everything and reprogrammed different movements, different things, and this whole week has been perfect actually in terms of lifting. So I'm really happy actually with what my program turned out to be. So it's kind of like a Jedi lesson, if you will, being patient with yourself.
Yeah, it's difficult to do. Over the last several months, I've had a nagging strain that I thought could be a number of things. I thought it could be a hernia. I thought it could be traced to my kidneys at some point. So I had to go through a number of testing. Everything got cleared. Everything's fine. But it was kind of annoying because I was like, "Oh, is this my appendix?" Because my family has appendicitis in the family history, right? A gallbladder, stuff like that. It just runs rampant through the family. So I'm like, "Oh, great! I'm gonna have to go through this."
Yep.
But it turns out like, hey, I just had to scale things back myself, and that's what happened. But yeah, I know what you mean. You know,
Yeah.
us guys there that really like to be active. The last thing you
Oh
want to
yeah.
tell us is to go and scale things back. And it's like, huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean scale things back? I don't know what that means. But yeah,
Oh
patience,
yeah.
as Yoda had once instructed Luke Skywalker on Dagobah, is one of the many valuable lessons that George Lucas instilled in Star Wars for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely valuable one, and I'm sure there's plenty more of Star Wars lessons and things we'll be getting into tonight as well, with all the
Oh
Lucasfilm
yeah.
properties.
Oh yeah, so I have a discussion based on our week in Star Wars right off the bat, right off the rip here. I was training with my client today, and it's great because some of the clients I have, I could just shoot the crap with them for the full hour session as we're working out, and it just makes it go by so quickly, right? Because we are getting in the weeds in between our rest, in between sets. We're talking about this, and I told him to go watch Tales of the Jedi, and he had come back to me this week after the last. He's like, "Yeah, I even introduced my wife to Star Wars, and she technically hates Star Wars because she knows I'm obsessed with it and just wants to hate on something that, is kind of just fun to hate on because I'm obsessed with it, whatever." But he's like, I showed her the Ahsoka episodes and she really enjoyed them. So then I showed her the Clone Wars episodes that had her in there. Then I showed her the Bad Batch episodes, and she's asking me like when all of the Bad Batch episodes. So in other words, we got in this discussion of like the ways of I want to say like indoctrinating our loved ones into Star Wars in in a matter of way, because like it's so funny because once you get them you can reel them in. There's like, oh, you like this and you got to check this character out that appears in this series, and then wait till you watch him show up in this live action series called The Mandalorian. And then you got to go and
Yep.
check this animated series out. And it's just this deep, never ending chasm, this deep hole that you just keep digging down and down and down to the wonders of Disney Plus as far as viewing it on the screen. So I thought that was great because I was just like, yeah, I love when that happens, when somebody's like opens their minds to Star Wars a little bit more, and then you have that great satisfaction of steering their ship in what you think could be like the best direction for them to take. Because at this point, it is very much a big thing to get somebody into Star Wars because there's so much media out there. There's so much media. You want to point maybe some people to the stuff that's some of the best stuff based on their interests. So if they like the Bad Batch, show them Rookies. Show them the Umbara arc. Show them the Landing at Point Range Geonosis arc. Like, you want to show them the best of the best to make sure that they're really into this stuff. You know what I mean? Because it can be daunting to be like, all right, you gotta watch all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars and all 4 of Rebels and all. Sometimes people just want a taste of it before they dive into the deep end. So, have you had any kind of recent things like that have happened with people recommending some certain Star Wars too?
I mean, not necessarily, just because like virtually everyone I know either has watched a lot of Star Wars, or like, they're just not going to watch it no matter what. But no, like for me, I guess I would say more of like the indoctrinating um, of people would actually be my niece, who's only a year and a half old. She absolutely loves Grogu. Like I have a couple of those little electronic Grogus that are about life size, and like whenever she is here, she literally just stands there and just like stares at it, and it's so cute. And whenever she sees that, she just gets so happy. Whether they're here or like we're visiting my grandma, and she has like a baby Grogu stuffed animal we got her. Like no matter where it is, like she instantly just goes and just stares at Grogu and checks him out, and it's like, hey, that's cool. Like a year and a half old and already like recognizing and like sticking with that imagery of Grogu, of all the potential like toys and things to mess with. Like Grogu's the one she's like gravitating to.
Yeah, I mean it's made for kids, right? I mean, look at that face. You
Yeah,
can't deny that face. Whoever
yeah,
sees that, young or old, is immediately infatuated with this character. And
Yep.
whoever was the lead designer. I guess it was Jon Favreau, right? That sketched him, or was it Filoni? One of the two sketched him. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure
Yeah, I
whose
think it
idea it
was.
was.
I don't remember. It was one of those two though. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that were the lead ones that did it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, so that's. I mean, heck, I'm sure there's plenty of people, we don't even know that have gotten indoctrinated into Star Wars because of just Grogu. Like, oh, what's that from? And then they watch The Mandalorian, and then they watch the movies, and then they watch the whatever. Um, I'm sure there's plenty of people that have gotten into Star Wars because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tell us below in the comment section or email us at outerrimtransmission@gmail.com. Do you have some stories to tell about, loved ones, friends that you showed one thing to and then they got involved? They wanted to go down the deep end. Let's talk about it. Let us know. All right, so getting into the show proper, we had a couple releases that came out this week in the comic book space. We had the High Republic Adventures issue number 1 coming out from Dark Horse. This is our young kind of younger generation story in the High Republic. And I say that, with asterisks because the High Republic Adventures Volume 1, based in Phase 1 of the High Republic, was probably one of the best storylines out of all the High Republic Volume 1, revolving around Lula Talasola and Zine Morala, and just this awesome growing up story about these kids in this major disaster. Here we have a story about this character named Sav Maligan, who actually appears in Star Wars High Republic Adventures Volume 1. And she's dealing with some heavy hitters. She's on Takodana. She wants to be fitting in with Takodana's crew at the Maz Kanata's palace or castle. So she's actually a Jedi Padawan pretending to be a pirate. And she goes to Maz's castle and finds out that Therm Scissor Punch from Solo's there. And none other than Dexter Jettster himself. And we get to see a young, spry Dexter Jettster who's pretty lean and is a blaster wielding machine, because this guy is going up against these weird cult people in the forest and the jungle. And you actually see Maz Kanata with hair. So there's an evolution of Maz Kanata as jet black hair. So yeah, you got to check out that review I have on the website on youtube.com.
I thought you were about to say Dr. Evanson and Ponda Baba. I was going to say really, but I'm glad you didn't.
Oh no. Oh no. That's in the Han Solo and Chewbacca series. No, I'm not even kidding. They're literally in there. But we also had the Darth Vader issue number 29, in which we have another handmaiden infiltrating the Empire. So we have the handmaiden of Dorme, that has been finding out the location of her sister in arms, Sabe. She believes that has joined the Empire. So she's trying to basically get her to come back to redeem her. So she went to the Empire's, one of their strongholds in the Super Star Destroyer Executor, and is cruising around there with none other than the guy from Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Ochia Bastoon. I was stalling trying to remember his damn name. How could I forget? Ochia Bastoon. Yeah, so it's a very interesting story, because then Sabe is actually on Skako Minor doing a mission for Vader to show her, her what is it called? Her allegiance to the Empire by killing Julian, this guy that's the Techno Union guy. I'm really terrible with names today. What is the guy? He's a separatist leader. He's a Techno Union guy.
I know what you're talking about.
Wat Tambor.
Yeah, Tambor.
His grandson, Jewel Tambor, has started an uprising that the Empire is trying to put down. So Vader's testing the mettle of Sabe, saying, "Oh yeah, are you serious about the Empire? Why don't you go and assassinate Jewel Tambor for me and see how you do? See how allegiant you are to the Empire." And spoiler alert, she kills him. So there you go. That's the issue there. Sorry for people I just spoiled the issue, but I don't think there's a whole lot of people that really are fascinated by the story. It's going on a little bit long, in my opinion. But that's a discussion for another day. I think they just have to get on with it at this point, move on to Return of the Jedi era. There's been a lot of Darth Vader flashbacks, and I'm kind of tired of seeing them, frankly. It's like they're showing every possible angle of this guy's life, and it's 29 issues in. It's like, okay, let's move past. But anyway, so what we're going to get into first is our Andor Season 1 breakdown, review, discussion, however you want to slice it. We're going to get into more of an over-the-top view because we do have a couple stories that I want to spend some time on tonight. And let's just start off with characters. We'll start off with Andor as the titular character of this show. Ben, what'd you think about from the start to finish? Did you see an arc for Andor? Did you see some development for Cassian? Did you see any transformation of this character from episode 1 to 12?
Oh yeah, they definitely did a good job on giving his character a proper arc, I would say, because at the beginning of the show he started out like not caring for anyone else except for himself, basically. And then, we saw him progress through at first wanting just to make money with the rebels, and then it progressed to obviously the stuff with Marva and the stuff with him getting arrested, and just him witnessing a lot of those things happening, like the bad things the Empire were doing, whether it be him getting wrongfully arrested or the stuff going on at the factory. And then of course by the culminating in the end of it with him fully realizing he's more he's more into the rebellion stuff than what he realized, and now he's into it, and obviously he joins them based on his interaction with Luthen in the series finale, or in the season finale. So I think they did a good job on transitioning his character from point A to point, I guess you would say, since this is a few years before his death in Rogue One, maybe point A to point K in his arc until he gets to Z at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah.
But I would say they did a good job on transitioning his character to now we buy him being part of the rebellion, because at first in the early part of the season it was he's just being greedy and about himself and whatever. And then heck, sure, he cared about Marva when he left, but obviously at that time he may have not cared about her as much, because you take loved ones for granted and then they pass away, and then you're damn, I wish I would have talked to him more. So I feel like he had something like that going on with him and Marva. And then by the end of it was he was full on into the whole rebel stuff.
Yeah. So I'll echo a lot what you said there, Ben. I love the first 3 episodes, this deep dive into his behavior, his psyche, essentially just his background, right? He's just this guy that everybody just has a debt for him. He has a debt to everybody in that Ferrix town. And you get to see his conversations with just the different locals there, and he just seems like he's skating by, right? He just doesn't have much of direction. He's just trying to get by. I'll get money.
I'll throw in real quick. I'll throw in real quick and let you continue. Just to throw out there, when you're on the early parts of him, a thing to keep in mind is, in my opinion, he's very similar to Han Solo in A New Hope. Just a smuggler, just rough and tough, making by, getting his money. First gets hired by the rebels to make some money for doing this mission, and then he gets into the calls. But continue.
Yeah, so it really seems like, okay, this is a character. We even see the flashbacks. It's pretty neat seeing the flashbacks, right? Just starting there and getting the context that he's actually adopted. This is not even, what it's like to be because here's the thing. We've heard this, and in Rogue One, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. So you can extrapolate. I don't know if we really got that in this story, unless they're going to blow our minds in season 2 and give us something there. But I was fully on expecting to see Andor maybe throwing stones at some soldiers walking by or something as a kid. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think with that, obviously, Tony Gilroy knows Rogue One because he was a heavy-handed part in it. I really think that probably was more along the lines of maybe not literally he's been maybe involved with the Empire messing up his life since he was 6 years old. But I feel like it's more along those lines. The Empire has been in his life and messing up his life since then, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. What I
had to guess.
Yeah, what I will say is I was a little bit surprised at least in the beginning parts of season 1, where it felt like Andor was a lot more passive, meaning he was kind of standing back, observing a lot. Like you didn't see like rousing speeches of Andor or anything in particular that was like stand out, right? Like he was more or less like a passenger on this train. Like he was just along for the ride. There wasn't any stand. I was like thinking in the early part of the season, I'm like, this is Andor, but I'm almost caring more about the stuff with Luthen, Mon Mothma.
Yep.
He's very passive. He's not really putting himself out there. It's almost like the viewer, he's like the vehicle for the viewer to like experience like the first signing up of the rebellion, so to speak, and getting involved that way. But then by the end of the season, the trials and tribulations were perfectly sewed together, whether it be him getting in that blaster fight at the end on Ferrix in episode 3, to going on the heist and really seeing how the rebels operate, the manifesto of Nemec and getting all that information there, to the jail and working with camaraderie with other people that would eventually get turned into this rebellion of these free people, these alliance of the people, and seeing what is his name, Kino Loy, played by Andy Serkis, that guy imprinted. So it's neat about this series is you have all these big people in the lives of Andor that rubbed up on him. They eventually see an amalgamation of those character traits in his character in Rogue One, and certainly by the end of season 1, you're already seeing that, and you're seeing the character change, and just Marva too, his mother, right, his adopted mother, rubbing off on him with the rebellion and that whole tragic thing of not actually seeing his mother pass away, personally, and but just the resilience of Andor being able to get out of these situations that he finds himself in, having to think on his feet, right, with the guy like Skaven or whatever his name was, when he just blasted him point blank. The guy wanted the raid with the money, and no, I'm going to kill you. So there's a lot of point blank moments like that, which were pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those type of like up close moments with casting were really good. Just because we don't get a lot of those with many of the Star Wars characters, because they're movies or shows, like, and there's more of like an ensemble cast, I guess you would say, and yeah, so like they had some good up close moments with him, whether it be like the blaster moments, like you said, with that guy, or with whether it be with Luthen, or whoever. I mean, heck, even him going to that. I mean, pretty much Star Wars Miami, and going to that hotel,
Yep.
like that whole thing. Like, I mean, that's all just like new imagery and new stuff on screen in Star Wars. So like, it's cool, kind of like seeing that sort of stuff. And yeah, I just think it's a really good job on how they executed those up close moments with Cassian, I would say.
Yeah. So I mentioned the guy's name already, but Luthen Rail, played by Stellan Skarsgård, and this guy was a dark horse, right? We didn't know anything about this character. He's not an established character in Star Wars, made up just for the show. But I think by the end of this, he's going to be like the father of the rebellion, right? We're going to get this retroactive. Maybe. What I'm thinking is like in the comics and the books, like we might get like retrofitting of like, oh yeah, this guy named Luthen Rail like got these groups together. Maybe not. I mean, you see that speech at the end of episode, what is it, 10 or something, when he's down in the underbelly of Coruscant. He's like, yeah, the whole monologue he gives about basically his life is at forfeit. He's sacrificing all the joys of life to basically create the rebellion, which he'll probably not see. And I think maybe his name will never get out, because he'll just die in infamy, and just like, hey, Mon Mothma takes his job and basically unites everybody. But yeah, this mysterious character, from the ship, the Fondor ship with the cool little droid brain, to the cool moments of him pulling up his hood over his head like a badass, to piloting the Fondor and acting. I think that the coolest thing about this character is he is one of the best representations of what the show was originally pitched to be, which is like the spy thriller story. And he is very much a spy. I mean, it doesn't get much more spy than a guy putting on a wig, putting on a completely different personality and being able to escape between the politics of Coruscant in the heart of the Empire, mind you, to working in the Outer Rim, is setting up these different things and keeping an eye on people like Andor and all that sort of thing. But yeah, just the delivery of Stellan Skarsgård's lines, the writing, everything about the character. He brought so much gravitas that anytime he was on screen, I immediately like kind of like sat up in my seat like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Because stuff is, this show is a lot more built on dialogue than it is action, and I applaud for that. And this character definitely has a lot more of those slower parts of the show, but they have a lot of momentum and they mean a lot. Every time he's on there, there's something important happening.
Yeah, his character was one of the best. Probably the best like slow moment characters for sure. Like when it comes to all of this sort of stuff, like just because I feel like with Cassian, like we mentioned, early parts of the show, his character was kind of like in the background. Obviously, Cyril, we'll get to him. Like he didn't really achieve anything much. And then, I feel like the two lead characters for like, the best like monologue type people, it's definitely Luthen or Deidre for sure. I think those are the best ones. And him, obviously, he's the best one on like the rebellion side. Just for his acting, like you said, whether it be the speech, whether it be his actual like acting in universe, or whether it be like the ending, or even his interaction with Saul Guerrero was really good. Like those different things, I feel like were really good parts of his character. And then, of course, like you mentioned, his character out of all the characters, even Cassian, was by far like the best one in terms of like embodying like the whole spy thing, because this series didn't have really much of that at all other than Luthen stuff. And like to me, I think I brought it up last week, and I feel like this week's even more of an appropriate time to bring it up. But I think this show, the more I look at it as a whole, is a prequel to to the whole spy thing of what they were saying they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Like I think this show was definitely the prequel to what they were originally pitching to the audience, and then we're gonna actually get what they were pitching in season 2.
Yeah. Andor Rebel Spy, right? Now that Andor is firmly cemented into rebellion, we're gonna see a week-to-week sequence of him sneaking around in the underbelly of places like Coruscant, maybe, or the one planet or the planetoid asteroid that he was in Rogue One. There's that location. Ring of Catherine. I'm saving myself today. Here, look at that. These names, man. Star Wars, as it gets larger and larger, and I get older and older, it's harder for me to recall some of these different names. Anyway, I'm acting like I'm 80 years old now. I'm not even half that, people. But anyway, let's talk about Mon Mothma, right? So Mon Mothma was another big character, and the actress Genevieve O'Reilly was constantly on the posters, constantly in the interviews as probably the second lead character in this entire series, right? You can't really have a rebellion story without her. We've seen how important she was in Rebels. We see things that maybe we'll get a crossover with next season, with this whole Gorman thing that was even mentioned in this first season. But I love what Genevieve O'Reilly brought to this, because she's absolutely no action scenes at all. Everything is dialogue, but it's powerful dialogue, and it's dialogue and it's stories that I never expected to see in Star Wars. Like between two locations, or really, like she's either in a speeder car, she's at the Den of Antiquities, whatever you want to call it, the little artifact room showcase of Luthen Rail, or she's at her own humble abode there in the higher levels of Coruscant. The stuff with the family was really interesting, with Lita and Perrin, and how she's able to kind of be the enemy to her own family. And you see there's the different maneuvering about how she gets in deep. Like she thinks like, oh yeah, the rebellion's going to be like the White Knights. Nah, it's not. We've seen from Rogue One, the first couple minutes, there's a guy being shot by a rebel officer, right? The rebels don't start this war off in the best of ways. They have to go and do the dirty deeds to get their funds. And we see that from Mon Mothma getting in over her head with this whole Aldani situation and making the choice. I think a lot of the good things about this series is you get to empathize with the choice that these characters make, these tough choices. She needs this money bad. This money is going to be what makes or breaks some big operations in the rebellion, that they're going to need these funds. But the only person she could turn to is a mafiosa that is basically going to marry off her child to this person, arrange this marriage. And, well, it seems like Lita doesn't care a whole lot. But for Mon Mothma, she knows this single-handedly firsthand because she was the product of this whole old Chandrillan custom of, oh yeah, her life is miserable. Her personal life, as you can see, is not on the best of straits with her husband. And so she knows how tormenting that life can be. And the fact that she follows through and actually gives her daughter away to this guy for the money, I think that could be how we get to see Mon Mothma maybe separate from the family life and just go full in on the rebellion next season, is because she's not going to have the as strong of attachments to saving her family as much anymore because she already gave them away. And you even see the last episode, she's getting more cunning. She's throwing her husband under the bus to like mislead the ISB. So she's catching on quick with the dirty ways of starting a rebellion. And so I'll throw this over to you, Ben. What'd you think of Mon Mothma?
Yeah, I mean, her character, next to Cassian, obviously, her character was definitely the second best arc, I would say, in the show, just because even though she didn't have action sequences, like as you mentioned, it was really nice getting to see her character go through her own struggles and things, if you will, from the start, from her basically being, like I said, from the start, from the beginning, just the rich person writing the checks to, oh dang, now I have to actually get involved and I have to sacrifice things. So like, of course it's great getting to see her have to do that, because honestly I would have kind of been critical of that if they would have not had her struggle at all, because you have to have her character struggle and like sacrifice something. I mean, we've seen that like all throughout Star Wars, whether it be like Leia losing Alderaan or different characters like that, Luke losing his family, etc. So like it's great getting to see an iconic character, an iconic background character, I guess you would say, of Star Wars actually have to deal with some struggle as well. So I really enjoyed that. And then of course just getting to see the way Genevieve O'Reilly portrayed her. I think her acting was arguably I think between I think your three best actors of the series are Genevieve O'Reilly, the girl that plays Deidre, and then Luthen. I think those are your three best for the series so far. Just because, like, the way she portrayed Mon Mothma was done really well. Whether it be like the delivery of the lines, whether it be like the more high stakes moments or the emotional moments with her family. And as you mentioned, I think with her now giving away her daughter, I would honestly, if I had to guess, I think we could even get a little time jump from this season to season 2, and we might even just totally cut out, like Perrin might not even be back. Like they might not even bring the family back for season 2. Like she might just be full blown into the rebellion mode in season 2.
Yeah, I don't think they have time. I don't think they have time with 12 episodes left, and they're going to be like year gaps. They're going to just assume the audience knows, like, okay, it's a year later. That's her past now. She's going to be involved heavily with the rebellion, or at least like going to be less with the family. We're going to see her doing more politics with the different sects. I won't be surprised if we see a scene or two with her and Bail Organa,
Yep. Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll probably see some of that. I mean, heck, I could see we just getting a line like writing off the husband in early season 1, just her being like, "Hey, when you could just easily see Luthen asking what happened to the husband and daughter, and her basically being like, "Hey, you said we had to give up sacrifices," or you know what I mean, like her basically regurgitating Luthen's like sacrifice thing back to him. I could see something along those lines happening. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm really interested to see where her character goes into the second season. Just because you have to amp up her stakes somehow. Now that the family's out of the picture, now it's like obviously Cassian's stakes are we're just going to get action stuff with him, or stuff he's in, maybe death-defying situations or something. But like Mon Mothma is going to be interesting because will it be something like, is she going to deal with something like Padme and Attack the Clones, where she has like those alien lizards coming in to like take her out, or something like that? I mean, just because if she raises too many red flags, like who knows what could happen. So I feel like her stakes will have to get raised a little bit, whether it be like her almost getting caught, or just something along those lines. And I'm excited to see where we get from basically here to there.
Yeah, it's very cool when you have legacy characters and nothing fatal can happen to them, but it's the writing around the characters that they interact with which build up the stakes. Because there are
Yeah.
plenty of characters we haven't seen before, one of which you've mentioned a few times, called Dedra Mero, supervisor of the
Yeah.
Imperial Security Bureau, aka ISB. This is our first look in live action at an ISB officer. Just how they operate on Coruscant was mind blowing enough for me. Just finally getting to see like the core intelligence of the Imperial bureaucracy there, and just getting to see her rise through the ranks of the Imperials, and how we always know in the Sith, right? The Sith are always trying to kill each other off, and Palpatine kind of instilled the same sort of fatal competition in his underlings in the Empire, and you get to see the one, what is his name, Blemming or something like that,
Something like that.
Blevins, who is her contemporary. They're going at it, and she uses the Aldani situation to get the one up on him, to get the information from Seargarding about this different device, to get the jurisdiction basically of Ferrix, and to go after Andor in a more efficient way. So I really liked her tenacity to continue to see this personal vendetta through. And you could tell this is a really well written character when you're cheering basically for this fascist person, part of this tyranny of the Empire. And then you get to a certain episode and it makes you think, why am I cheering for this person that's horribly torturing this other character that I like? And then it realized, oh wow, they flipped a switch on me on this one. So I can't give enough praise to the creatives, as well as the direction, and of course Denise Go's performance as Dedra, for making her one of the best Imperial villains I've seen in a long time. And I'm gonna just lay down that law right now, lay down that statement very comfortably, saying she definitely is. And in that moment, she was very scary. But then we get to see more development from her in that last episode. She's walking tall with her Death Trooper escort. Oh, we're gonna crush these people if they try to do anything. To her, just getting absolutely shook from just the craziness, the mayhem that ensued with that whole Rix Road little riot there. And now it's like, okay, well, now I'm not sure. Is she gonna go full blown Empire mode now, or is she just gonna say it's not worth throwing my life away in this cause anymore? Let me just go completely out of here. So that character has been on one hell of a roller coaster. And again, just like the character of Luthen Rail, and you and Milton, Ben, were talking about this. Anytime you see her on screen, you're just paying attention because that Imperial storyline is just so interesting. These guys are so dog eat dog in that world, and it's really cool to see the inner workings of how that all works. And like Andor was saying, you get to see the Imperial perspective through her eyes, and about how the Imperials are so comfortable. They're so comfortable because it's been 15 years into their reign, and there's just nobody that can stand up against them. They are the dominant force of the galaxy. Who's going to have the audacity to be able to go after them in their own home? And we're seeing that happen. They can't be resting on their laurels forever.
Oh yeah, for sure. Her character, they did such a good job with her in like all of those aspects that you mentioned, like whether it be like from the start, from her like climbing her way up the ladder, to becoming ruthless, to where she gets left off at. Like I think like you said, Denise Go did a really, really good job on her acting. for sure. Like just all of her different interactions, whether it be with like their fellow Imperial officers or even Cyril, like just all the different moments with her. I think she did a really good job. Like those interpersonal moments, like we mentioned with Cassian and Luthen, I think she did a really good job in those as well. And yeah, I mean, heck, I mean, I kind of predicted it last week, and here we are. Like, I'm not sure if it was on our show notes. It might be, but Denise Go did an interview this week, and she literally said like, there's plenty more of Deidre like doing villainous things in season 2 of Andor. So it sounds like she is going to be a good part of season 2. So to me, I think it's going to be off that kind of prediction I mentioned last week in our finale review. I think it's going to be she's not going to be shook. I think she's going to come back with like a vengeance of I'm going to crush like these people into the dust. I think it's going to be something along those lines. So like that interview with her, it kind of like gave more credence to that. And yeah, it's just like if you think about it, we had the different like brutal methods the Imperials used in this season. Like, what will they do in season 2 with her being basically
Ooh,
pissed off? Like,
ooh,
what
man.
will they do then? Like, what's she gonna do? Send a squad of death troopers into somewhere to like just wipe out some potential innocent rebels, or like, are we gonna see something like you know uh whatever it may be, like just something like that on screen, which would be crazy. But I mean, hey, they're touching like that line with this show, so they might go there.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the main characters I wanted to talk about because all those leave a lasting impact. Of course, you have so many other characters. I think there's more characters in this show than probably any other Star Wars live action show.
Yep.
It's a lot more of a wider scope, which is funny because it's called Andor, but yet it's got like the biggest cast. And originally I was like, hey, this show should be called like Spark of Rebellion or something. You can come up with any term, right? But Disney loves to stick to their main character names because I guess it helps out all the metrics or something. But we're gonna see. I mean, especially going into season 2, Andor is gonna be front and center now that he's solidified in his ideology now. Thanks to Nemec and his little manifesto he's been listening to, and the things he has seen, he's gonna go through it all. But let's talk a little bit about just the feel of the series, the cinematography, the sound, just the way that we are basically immersed in this galaxy and the story. And I'll start off with this one because it's clearly evident that this is a lot different than Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is a lot different than Book of Boba Fett, than The Mandalorian. Whereas those things were mainly shot on the volume. You could see that they went out, they built an entire city of Ferrix out there in the UK, I believe it was. They went to the Scottish hillsides, all these places. They went through a lot of time in production. I think this thing was in production for about 2 years or something crazy like that. And it shows like this is cinematic movie quality. And it really just lends itself to the immersiveness of just being interested and engaged in this story because all this stuff really does truly look lived in. The culture of Ferrix, incredible. Those first 3 episodes just laying down how everybody works. They got the wall of the gloves. They got the time grappler who's hitting on the anvil, turning on the messages for people to either go to sleep or start work, right? It really took its time, and I appreciated that about the show. It took its time to establish Aldhani as this place where it's the more royal area, where you got these people that are shepherds of these sheep, and they're having to have this religious thing called the eye that's happening, and they don't want to leave, but the Empire's pushing them out. There are so many great little lore details in the show that help the environment just establish even more. The prison is like kind of THX 1138 spin on a Star Wars prison that was just, man, I wouldn't. Oh man, it's terrible to be in that situation. But yeah, what are your thoughts on just the overall feel, the environments, and all that in this story?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we mentioned it. I mean, consistently throughout the whole running of this show, like the cinematography is great. like the visuals, whether it be the locations, the costume design, the color palette. I think was really done really well for it to be like not dark. It's more like gloomy, like a gloomy color palette because like that fits with like the Empire being more like oppressing over everything basically. So I think they did a good job with the color palette. And then, again, like I jokingly have talked about it throughout this season, but it's like, man, you watch this and you wonder why they didn't swap this show and Kenobi's budget. That's what I wonder, because it's like, man, that was your legacy character, but yeah, like this show, they did a really good job with all the on location stuff. I think, um, like you mentioned, there's not any like drastic moments. Like for example, in Kenobi, I think one of the most noticeable moments where it's like, man, you're really noticing the volume when it's the either the second or third to final episode. It's when Reva goes and captures him in and out of that building, like, and all those stormtroopers are there. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
whole thing, you can literally see the background of the volume. Like you can literally like see, like almost see the wall. So it's just, that's like a stark difference. And then, Mando does everything fine just because the volume's meant to be like, westerns are meant to be shot in that, so it works fine for that. Like Kenobi, that was a disaster in my opinion on several of those moments. But this show, like, there was not anything that stood out negative, like visually. I think they did a good job with all of that. And then, I mean, heck, the space battle with Luthen, I think they did a really good job on for it being a TV show. Like it felt cinematic, like movie quality. I thought that was done really well. And then, yeah, I think they just did a really good job on the cinematography of it all, like that. And then for me, I think the pacing, like I mentioned before, I mentioned it several times in the first half of this
Hmm.
show. Like the pacing, I didn't like in the first half. I can just flat out say that. Like
Ah.
first six episodes, I think it was bad, flat out bad pacing.
Oh no.
Um, like there's no way around it for me. I think it was. I think a lot of the pacing issues could have been solved if, say, the first two, maybe three episodes were slow like that, and then episode four on were better, be upbeat. Because like I think the show started picking up in episode six, moving further, because then the pacing, even the slower moments, were cut better. I think like the moments, like Cyril talking with his mom, even though I'm not a fan of that character, obviously, like the moments in the second half of the season when he's talking are better than the first half because you're not lingering and lingering and lingering on those scenes. So like for me, I think a lot of the editing was the issue in the first half of the season, but the second half was done really well. Like I really enjoyed the second half of the season a lot, compared to the first half. So yeah, like I think that's kind of like my thoughts on the pacing. And then yeah, also, actually, now that I mentioned it,
Hmm.
the color palette. I think the color palette is an interesting thing for our viewers to
Okay.
look at, and even on a rewatch, I feel like the color palette was consistent on like on Aldani, the end of the show, but I feel like the episode where he goes to like Miami, basically, I feel like it was a brighter color
Oh, it
palette now that
was.
I think about it.
It was.
So like it's cool that they changed the color palette like that and didn't leave it consistently like gloomy. Um, yeah, so that's just a nice little touch they added.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways from Andor season one is the set pieces. Man, oh man,
Yep.
I like, and just to prelude that, the cool structure, the Clone Wars esque structure of the 3 episode arcs that lead to the big finale that lead into the next arc, and it just snowballs, right? You got the breakout of
See,
Ferrex, which leads
I
to
mean, look,
Aldani, which
season
leads
two's four
to
arcs.
the prison. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, but the set pieces were something that, for me personally, added so much tension, more tension than I've seen in Star Wars in a long time. Whether it be breaking Andor out of that place with the chaos of the people hitting back at the Morlana One security there, grappling one of their transports to smash it into that machinery, just like absolute crazy stuff, like a little like guerrilla warfare tactics happening there, to the awesome heist, and I said it before, I'll say it again, the best heist in Star Wars history, live action, is just the whole thing with them. You see the payoff of them training to be like the Imperials, of them having this master plan with this dam fortification and sneaking in and doing this Mission Impossible, rappelling down walls and going under the water and taking hostages, and just the escape and the shuttle with this, some of the best cinematography I've seen in Star Wars, with the eye, with just all the stars and the meteorites going through the sky, and having that as a constant reminder throughout the episode. It's just like a chef's kiss to the episode. Like, holy crap, just the amount of attention to detail, everything, and just the ratcheting up of tension to the jailbreak. I mean, you've seen it coming. Obviously, Andor's can't be in there. He's not going to be in there for 6 years, because that would mean he's past Rogue One. So we knew that was coming. And it was just this epic moment of these people rising up, and the music and the inspiring speech that Andor prompts Kino Lloyd to give. And it's just, jumping in the water, just like this epic overshot of the facility to represent the look of an Imperial cog, like all that symbolism. And just that is just incredible, going into the finale and just seeing the people rioting, seeing how fast the Empire turns to kill these people, taking their blasters off a stun and setting it to kill. And I could just go on and on, because each one of those 4 episodes having those flashpoint elements was just bravo to the team, because they killed it. And that's the maturity of all that stuff happened. Really felt like it, for me, was like more of like on par with like sort of like an HBO or AMC kind of drama at that point.
Oh yeah, they did a really good job with like the arcs and like the stakes, and like you mentioned, the different like build-ups inside of them, whether it be like the prison break specifically. I think they did a really good job with that, and all the other different ones throughout the show. Like they did a good job of having like multi-layered arcs going on like that for different different parts of the story, really.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what were some of your hang-ups on this season? We've been talking about the praise. Now, what were some things that left you maybe wanting more, man?
Yeah, I would say for me, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, first half of the season to me was almost a total throwaway. Like I don't have any desire to ever watch the first half of this show again. But like the second half of the season, I could rewatch some of those episodes for sure, just because like I think the pacing was just so bad, just flat out bad in the first half. That's what really was like dragging the show for me so much. I mean, like I remember like, us talking about having different relatives, like being like, hey, what is the action going to pick up? Or like, what's going on here with the story? I think that was what do you say, your cousin or something asked you that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, different things like that, I think were the issues in the first half of the season. And then another like issue I feel like was wasted. I feel like we've been dunking on this character all season long, and too bad Milton's not here to dunk with us. But Cyril's character, I feel like honestly, he didn't contribute much to the show. Like you could cut him out and still basically get the same end result for the most part. Like he really wasn't that integral for Deidre. So to me, it just felt like wasted screen time. Like I'd rather cut his screen time and give it to like Deidre. Or, I mean, Andor, the lead character of the show, give him more screen time, like doing some stuff, or even, just other Imperial stuff, some more like external shots of like, I don't know, stormtroopers marching, like, just something, because I feel like his character was kind of unnecessary. And then, I think that was like my big issue with the show. Really, was just the pacing in the first half of the show. To me, didn't feel like Star Wars very much. Just because it was like, like I said, I have no desire to watch the first half of the show like ever again. But that's just because like this show, the first half of this season wasn't like to me, the second half of the series felt like Star Wars, 100% did. Just because like it was more upbeat, more action. The editing was more not choppy or more I guess the George Lucas thing, faster, more intense, like, that whole thing. it was more of that. Even in the conversation pieces, like I mentioned with Cyril, the conversation was cut down more. So it was done better. Like I think it was in like the sixth or seventh episode, whenever he was watching the news, like that was good stuff.
Hmm.
So like that even that scene was edited well, and like the second half of the season, it just felt like whoever was doing the editing, you might have had two different people. It felt like doing the editing on the first half and second half of this show. It's like I think that was my big hang up with the show overall, was just the editing in the first half. I think was poor, but and then just wasted screen time with Cyril. But other than that, like I really didn't have any like massive issues with the show. Overall, I think the music was fine. I don't think the music was like, there wasn't any like iconic
Yeah,
music
I
beats I
agree.
think we'll ever go back to. I think the music, it was just average music. I mean, heck, that's even kind of like Kenobi. Kenobi didn't have that. I mean, I can't recall a Kenobi beat like right off the top of my head, but Mando like the opening entrance to Mando, like that's as iconic as about anything in Star Wars now.
Even Book of
So
Boba
like,
Fett has a very memorable theme for him.
oh, that's one thing. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of critiques of Book of Boba, but I love that. I love that opening soundtrack. I really do with that show. Um, but yeah, I think the music was just average on this show, and yeah, I mean, that's one. Or those are my only few like major issues with the series. And then I think one praise we forgot to mention
Hmm.
was they need to continue giving us almost hour-long episodes.
Oh yeah.
Like that was
Oh, that
that's
was
a major,
great.
major thing, because to me, that's another major question in and of itself. Like this is all me going back on whoever's doing the budgeting over there, actually, because you know, like, all right, so we're giving hour-long episodes to a more expensive project, and then we're giving 35-minute episodes to shows in the volume. Like, what? Wait, like, what's going on here? So just like you have it backwards. If you want to save money, like do longer episodes in the volume and short episodes for the bigger budget show.
Yeah,
But
really.
I don't know. I just thought it was very strange in that regard. Like obviously the episodes being long are good.
Hmm.
It's just strange allocation of funds, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I'll echo you with the editing. I was fine with the pacing. It's just the way that the first couple episodes ended. I think that's the discussion I was having with one of my clients, one of my friends, or whoever. It was just like, oh yeah, the episodes just sometimes they just kind of end, and you're just like, oh, that was the
Well,
episode.
was it the second one?
Yep.
Was it the second one where it's Cassian just like staring or whatever, and it just cuts,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like
It's a
it's like
very strange
I
way. They don't have like a cliffhanger at all or any reason to like, oh, I gotta watch the next one right away. It's just like a scene ends and it's like, oh, okay.
well, see, when we watched that episode, I mean, I probably mentioned it during our review. Like, I must have glanced at my phone for like a half second because I thought it was going to cut to another scene, and then I looked up and it was like credits, and I was like, oh, okay, I
Yeah,
guess it ends.
it's like you missed something because at one point, like on Aldani, he's like, oh, like he gives the guy like this piece of technology and is like messing with it, and the scene ends and it's like it's over. It's like okay. Um, and yes,
Yeah.
I know the Kyle Solar character of Cyril Karn. I was championing this guy. I think that's the actor's name, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I was championing because he had such a strong start. Like this police guy that is trying to make a name for himself and he blunders because of his overconfidence will be his downfall. And next thing you know, we see like 6 or 7 episodes with him like in the same location. If they moved his location around a little bit, it would have been a little better. But there were, I agree, I can't really defend the character as much as I liked him. I can't defend
Yeah.
him enough to be like this character deserved to have all this. It was almost like they were
Yeah.
like saying, like it was almost like they're saying, like, "Oh, this character is gonna play a huge role. We don't want you to forget about him, so we're gonna just spend like at least like 30 seconds an episode just like looking at him or something." And then, I mean, it's arguable to be like, "Well, was his ending of season 1 really all that big to warrant all the screen time
That
just for
could
the
that,
one
that could have been
moment?"
an Imperial officer saving her, not
Yeah,
not him.
yeah, exactly. So,
Unless, like Milton's, excuse me, like Milton said last week, unless they're going to try to Force develop some weird love angle with him and Deidre in season 2. Like, that's the only way I could see that being a thing. Or like maybe, I guess if you want to stretch it, like maybe Deidre sees him saving her as like, hey, you can join the Empire now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, just because you acted out against these rebels. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of wrapping up our season 1 discussion and giving our final scores. I will say that this right now is the best live action Star Wars series. I won't say it's my favorite, but I'll say like it's the best in terms of breaking the bonds that we're used to with Star Wars and being unique and being bold, right? Like this is the first Star Wars story that is not dealing with as much mythology, really barely any, not dealing with the tropes we've seen in Star Wars. And I appreciate it the heck out of it for that because it's doing something new, it's doing something different, and all that stuff works. It feels the most grounded in reality, right? You could take the Star Wars off, and whether or not, I know you're not a huge fan of that whole aspect of, oh yeah, if you take the Star Wars off of it, what is it really? But I like that because it means that just because it's Star Wars doesn't mean it's automatically good all the time. Like it doesn't. This is a good story in its own right because it's built up by great acting, great writing, great cinematography, great direction, really great special effects. Right, some of those battle sequences are really, you feel like you're a band of brothers and all that sort of thing. We're seeing things in this series that we haven't seen in Star Wars before. Just the in-depth look at how a person gets tortured by this sound wave device, like that was horrifying. Seeing how the I've never seen such a study of the culture of characters in a location like Ferrix, and really seeing the inner workings of how that culture works from morning to afternoon to day. These people having these interactions where we're getting more of these characters built up. Seeing so much political thriller-esque storylines is really cool in Star Wars because we haven't really gotten that. All the stuff with Mon Mothma is fantastic. Stuff with Luthen is awesome. Just the way that this, again, it's not, when it comes to Star Wars storytelling with George Lucas, he was always making a commentary on what was happening in the current time. We haven't really seen that recently in Star Wars a lot, but what Tony Gilroy managed to do is he does that on a number of occasions in the story, and for that I appreciate it. It really hits home just as different aspects of the prison system and just people and everything else. It's a much deeper way of looking at things. There's a lot of nuance in this show, a lot of reading between the lines. Not everything is spelt out to the viewer, and it seeks us to look for answers and to look for information, not in a bad way, but in kind of like a fun way. Like, oh, you have to like actively listen to this show. You have to actively pay attention. And sometimes, like, I feel like with TV these days, it's like they make it so easy to absorb this stuff that half the time we could be on the phones and still understanding what's happening. And I don't know if that's a good thing, honestly. So the fact that they weigh the importance of this show to expect the viewers to really pay attention. And we're seeing a rebellion being born here. We're seeing stuff that we've seen in other mediums, sure, but this almost felt like a Star Wars novel to me, where you had all these characters, and a lot of them are just like the everyday person. We have not gotten that. All we've gotten so far in Star Wars is the generals, is the big sorcerers of it all, and not the everyday guy, which is going to end up helping beef up the stakes in the long term of things. So with that being said, I got to give Andor a score of a 9 out of 10. I think that ties it with Mandalorian season 2 with me, because I love that series just enough, but for the opposite reasons, really, almost. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think the series overall is solid. I think it has its issues, like I mentioned. First half of the season, toss it out. But the second half of the season, I think, is good enough to where it has a lot of good moments in it. And like for me, with the whole Star Wars thing, like I think to me, this is not the best live action show. I think that's The Mandalorian still by far. Even The Mandalorian season 1. Like The Mandalorian season 1, you know, it doesn't have any cameos at all, really, other than like Boba Fett's boots in episode 5. But it doesn't have any cameos really, and it still was a phenomenon of a show. Like it has a good story, good enough story, action, things like that, the editing, music, etc. I think that show still is superior for a lot of those reasons, for it like feeling like Star Wars to me, because to me, like just because a show, like I said, I've consistently, I think, posted about it throughout the show. Like, you talk about like the show being like unique and like breaking away from a lot of the normal norms of Star Wars, but like to me, it's like, do we need that for great Star Wars storytelling? Because like, Mando, awesome show. Well, one of the best shows out there right now. And then like, obviously you can't just fall back on the whole, oh, it's just Star Wars and it'll work, because it clearly didn't with the Book of Boba Fett. Like, they thought that with that show, and they completely botched it.
Yeah.
So like, other than the Mando episode of all things, so they like you just can't fall back on, oh, it's Star Wars. You have to have a good enough story, good enough like editing, action, and things like that to go along with it. But I think that's for me why Mando is still the best show by far, I think. And then, I feel like the other three, Book of Boba is the last, but I feel like Kenobi and Andor can be kind of flip or flop for me, just because there are certain aspects of Kenobi. Like, I think Andor has a more, let's just say, consistent, like, like, okay, so like say the second half of the season of Andor. Like I said, first half I'm not a fan of. Second half of the season I feel like has a more, if you'd say, a consistent range. Like it's a consistent like B minus, C plus, B solid B, whatever. It has a more like kind of like just not treading water, but you'll get where I'm going with this. And then Kenobi, I feel like, has more highs than this show. Like, there are more really high moments, but Kenobi's lows are much lower, I think, than this show. There are a lot of more like low moments in Kenobi where it's like, whoa, they really messed up some stuff here and there. So I feel like Kenobi has a lot of highs and lows, and Andor stays more like in the middle ground in the second half of the season for me. So like, I feel like those shows kind of can go back and forth for me depending on the day or discussion or whatever. So yeah, so I would say that's where I would rank the show. It's somewhere 2 or 3 on whatever given day. And then in terms of the show just as a whole, I think, like we mentioned, there's a lot of good things. For me, there's a lot of bad in the first half, but overall, I think the strongest parts of the show for sure are the characters in the show. For me specifically, if I had to rank like characters for most interesting, funny thing is I wouldn't even put Andor in the top 3. It would be in no specific order. It would be Luthen, Deidre, and Mon Mothma. I think those are your top 3. I mean, even at one point, Kino Loy, like he's in the top 5 probably. But I think they did a really good job on those characters, as well as like the actors playing those characters. I think they did a good job. And I think the issue for me and a lot of people going into this show were expectations of, we mentioned it. And now that we've gotten to the end of the show and we've discussed it more, is the whole, they had all this talk, like a lot of talk of like action spy thriller, James Bond in Star Wars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get to the show and Andor's not doing like any of that stuff. So it's like, I think that kind of like subconsciously hurt the show for some people, just because it was kind of like not what they expected. I mean, it was kind of like our thing with Obi-Wan and Anakin and Kenobi, where it's like, they went and marketed Hayden Christensen all around, and he was in the show for literally like 4 minutes. So, I think it's something like that, like a subconscious thing where it's like, all right, they said the whole spy thing so much and then we barely get it. So it's like, what did we really get? So like, I think that's where part of it also was failed in the marketing. But yeah, overall, I think the show was solid. It was wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was just a solid show. And for that, I'd probably have to give it an 8 out of 10.
An 8? I'm actually very surprised. I thought you were going to give it like a 7.
I at first came into this whole talk. See, hey, there we go. We improved my score some. I came into this whole
did
talk.
My job. I won bet over everybody.
Yeah, me being one of the meanest critics of the show.
I'm not trying to ever coerce somebody's opinion. I'm just speaking what I think is on my mind. That's all.
Yeah. No, I went in this. I had it wrote down on my notes. I was going to give it probably a 7.5, and then I was like, well, I like the color palette and different things and different little aspects that we discussed throughout this. So, yeah, I'd say like an 8, 7.9, 8, like about an 8, I would say. I'll be nice. I'll say an 8.
Yeah, I that's the thing. What this series is, I haven't seen anybody straight up hate this series like some other series out there. It's either people are like lukewarm on it or people freaking love it. That's what I feel like the consensus is like it's definitely ranking up either in like the middle area or like the best thing that Star Wars has done in years. Yep. So yeah, tell us what your thoughts are on Andor Season 1. We'd love to hear them. Again, you can either email us at outerrimtransmission@gmail.com. You can send a comment down in the comment section down below on this video or tweet at us. Real Ben Maynard, Starrapter, Outer Rim Transmission. Tag us and let us know your thoughts. So speaking of series, we aren't done talking Star Wars tonight, everybody. We're loading the back half of this episode with some pretty big news stories, starting off with just yesterday, hot off the press, out of a Comic-Con out there in Brazil. We got the announcement of Mandalorian Season 3 for March 1st, 2023. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, hey, I was in the Anaheim Convention Center when they said February. Well, it's a couple weeks later, everybody. I think we'll be okay. It's not 2 months later, right? We're getting this March 1st, 2023. So what are your thoughts on that, Ben? What's your initial reaction? What can you glean from this? Is there anything we should know about March 1st, or is this just going according to plan?
I mean, if you just look, the first thing I did actually when they posted that was look at the calendar. It's about 8 weeks until Celebration after that. So, just keep that in mind. I think that's like an interesting thing because it's like, are they going to do an 8-episode season and then go to Celebration and boom, announce, I don't know, show a trailer. I don't know, what if right after Celebration is the launch of Ahsoka or something, I think that's the thing with me where it's like, this show lines up perfectly with Celebration, unless the finale. What if the Mando finale is at Celebration? Like you guys get to watch it first, like they did with Kenobi. Like I could, maybe that happens.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, like add it up.
No.
It's literally, isn't it?
So Celebration technically starts on April. April 6th or 7th? So,
oh dang! I was thinking it was the end of April.
No, it's the beginning.
Never mind.
So that's what I was saying to my buddies. I was
man.
like, "Oh man, we're gonna even Celebration. I mean, come on, just have a viewing party of Mando."
Interesting.
Well, actually, no. Celebration will be starting on Friday and ending on Monday. So there's gonna be like no celebration happening technically on the day it comes out. But anyway, like.
Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, then all right. So throw that completely out the window because Mando's not going to be only 4 episodes. Anyhow, I don't know why I was thinking like April 29th. I guess that was a couple years ago or something. But
yeah.
See that's what I was thinking of. But anyways, my thing with it is it's just the whole like the beast that the Mandalorian is coming back. We've talked about it. I just talked about it, how, it's such a big, widespread show. I mean, look, boom, soon as they announced Mando, all you saw in the trending section on social media, it was Mando, Grogu, March 1st, like, those type of things, because it's that big of a beast. Like, it's on like the Game of Thrones level of hype. Like
Oh,
when people
easily.
see when people see the Mandalorian, they're like amped up about it.
Yeah,
So
March
it's just
1st, they gave us an image. It's not anything that I can really take from it. It's just a really zoomed in image of Din's helmet and Grogu there. Grogu looking exactly the same. Nothing. He's not in Mandalorian armor. Don't worry, everybody. So
yeah,
yeah, take a look. It's a cute picture nonetheless. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the other landscape of Lucasfilm, right? We have Bad Batch starting up on January 4th. So we're going to get a couple weeks worth of Bad Batch episodes out before that. Well, actually, so, I mean, we're going to get 2 episodes of Bad Batch out on January 4th. And then it'll be, we'll get to like 6 episodes in or something before Mando comes out. So that's going to be a very interesting time. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to watch Mando and Bad Batch for 2 weeks straight in Europe. But I guess Disney Plus works over there. If I log in on the tablet or something, I will find a way to watch these things. That's all I'm thinking about. Is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be in other countries at this point.
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
gonna
hey,
be
there you go.
I'm gonna be in
Like it'll
Amsterdam
be.
watching Mandalorian. It's gonna be crazy.
Oh, I know. Well, I mean, that's like me when I was with all the different talks, like Mando season 3. It's like man, and then you hear all these different things about like different footage and stuff. It's like, man, I just can't wait to see the next trailer whenever that is. I mean, it's if I had to guess, it'll probably be Christmas.
That's what I've
I
been
would say
hearing.
around.
I've been hearing
Yep,
rumblings about Christmas Day. We're gonna open up to a
yep.
fantastic present of some really
Well,
cool images.
Christmas Day, if you didn't realize either, is on a Sunday. So they know a lot of people will be home on the weekend.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be accurate, that report that was out there. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, hey, Mando is back, and that's going to be like the biggest thing in the world for like 8 straight weeks, basically, and then probably the weeks leading up to it as well, like the hype around the show, because that's like Mando. I feel like is on par level of hype of like when we were leading into like episode 9, or like leading into the actual theatrical movies. Like Mando like brings that much PR to Star Wars, so it's just like we have that. One thing now, it does make me a little nervous though, now that we've talked about the dates. Makes me wonder if they like don't show like an Ahsoka trailer at Celebration or something. You know what I mean? Since it's
It
like
might
halfway
be,
through Mando's
yeah.
season.
It might be.
Um,
It might be giving out spoilers if they show that for like the rest of season 2 of
oh
Mando or
yeah.
3.
Well, then maybe it'll. I mean, maybe they just get some Skeleton Crew stuff. Then I don't know. Or we'll get into like the Daisy stuff, but there's plenty of different options they have. I think the biggest takeaway I think with this is just like Mando's finally back. It feels like it's been forever since we reviewed the Mando season 2
Oh
finale.
my
Like
gosh, when was that? Even two
I,
years ago, almost at this point.
I think it was about 2 years ago, because I mean we were doing the podcast then. So
Yeah, it was in 2020, wasn't it? Because it was a
let me
one-two
think.
shot, wasn't it? Like 2019, the show came out for the first season, and then they were like, October, it's coming out now
Yeah,
for
yeah,
season two.
it was 2019, and then it was 2020. Yeah,
That's insane. Oh, well, granted, a lot of the resources and the creative work went into Book of Boba Fett, which is almost like a pseudo sequel. So,
yeah, like 2.5.
and at least we got to see Din Djarin a year later, right? It's not like we've gone completely without seeing them. It's kind of a nice thing they threw them in there because it does kind of whet our appetite a little bit more.
Yep.
But something that I can't wait for, and that is Jedi Survivor. So we had our first, or our cover reveal and our synopsis for Jedi Survivor. This is coming out. I'm going to pull up the details now. Pretty soon. This is coming out in March. Jedi Survivor is coming out in March. We're expecting a big reveal of this game coming out next week at the Jeff Keighley Game Awards. But this is the cover here. This book is going to be out. I'm looking for an exact release date here. It's like the first week of March. That's all I'll say about that until I can find out a specific date. But I'll read the synopsis. So Cal Kestis has come a long way since Order 66 first forced him into hiding. After reclaiming his connections to the Force, the former Jedi Padawan went on a journey in Jedi Fallen Order that ultimately led to meeting the newfound family among the Stinger Mantis crew. Now, actually, this is not the synopsis. Oh, I'm butchering this. Okay, this is actually the synopsis. Cal Kestis has built a new life for himself with the crew of the Stinger Mantis. Together, Cal's crew has brought down bounty hunters, defeated Inquisitors, and even evaded Darth Vader himself. More importantly, Marin, Sayre, Grease, and faithful droid BD-1 are the closest thing Cal has had to a family since the fall of the Jedi Order. Even as the galaxy's future grows more uncertain by the day, with each blow struck against the Empire, the Mantis crew grows more daring. On what should be a routine mission, they meet a stormtrooper determined to chart her own course with the help of Cal and his crew. In exchange for help starting a new life, the Imperial deserter brings word of a powerful, potentially invaluable tool for their fight against the Empire, and even better, she can help them get to it. The only catch, pursuing it will bring them into the path of one of the Empire's most dangerous servants, the Inquisitor known as the Fifth Brother. Can the Imperial deserter be truly trusted? And while Cal and his friends have survived run-ins with the Inquisitors before, how many times can they evade the Empire before their luck runs out? So there you go. What's your first reaction to that, Ben?
I mean, my first reaction when I saw this stuff, I knew you'd be really excited. I mean, that was honestly my first reaction. I was like, I know Chris is going to be super hyped about this because I know how much you love the Fallen Order franchise. For me, it's really good. Like, it sounds interesting. It sounds like it'll be a good bridge between the game and the other game, or the sequel, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think it sounds like it's going to be a good in-between thing because, sometimes when they create stuff like this, it's like, will it at least sound like it fits, because sometimes you'll create things like this and they'll be like, does this work or not? I mean, like people point to like different things we talked about before with Tales of the Jedi with like Ahsoka and like the book and all that stuff. Like, will it smoothly transition between one medium to the next?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like they at least know his character well enough to do that. And then, it kind of reminds me of something like, what's the Rogue One prequel book? Like, it sounds like
Catalyst.
Catalyst
by James
like
Luceno.
A Catalyst type thing.
Ooh, That's a good point. I didn't even think about that because that book was damn near almost mandatory reading material going to that movie because it worked so well. It fits so well together. Like they must have been talking to, the Gareth Edwards and Tony Gilroy when James was making that book or something, because so far that's one of those, that's still probably like the top 10 Star Wars canon novel. Like that's up there.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool getting this. We got a miniseries comic that predates Jedi Fallen Order, and it's about Sayre Junda as a Padawan and her master, and they're going around the galaxy looking for different things. So that was cool. But that came out I think after the game came out. But this is a neat way to get our appetite quenched a little bit before this big game, which I'm expecting the release date to be announced next week. I mean, you've seen the Twitter and the Facebooks updated their headers for EA games, Star Wars games with like the Fallen Order stuff earlier today. So, they're getting ready for a media blitz pretty soon here. We've seen YouTube videos of people getting the new action figures already. I've seen battle droids and KX droids and the Jedi Survivor logo on the box. Like, holy crap, they're getting ready.
Yeah, well, is there, I don't remember from the first game, what's the pre-order window for it? Because will they make that Christmas for the pre-order?
What do you mean?
Yeah. Like, can you pre-order the game already?
Oh.
Because I'm saying, with them changing their header, with them maybe announcing the date, will they say pre-order starting December 25th?
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
I bet you at the Game Awards they'll give the release date, and then Steam will be updated, and they'll be like, oh, you download the digital deluxe edition for $80 and you get like this cool behind the
Yep.
scenes documentary and these cool skins for Cal. Yeah, you know that stuff is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be happening next week, which would be in time for Christmas. If people want to use
Yep.
their gift cards toward that, they could go ahead and
Yeah.
do that. But I want to take a look at the cover because I'm not a big fan of the cover. I'll be up front. The cover, for those of you that are not watching us, I'll describe it to the best of my abilities. So it's got a cool color palette. I'll give it that. It's got a really nice green with Marin there, using the dark magic of the Night Sisters. And you got Cal Kestis front and center with the blue blade of his reconstructed lightsaber. And then there's Sarah Junda. You got Grease. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you got all the red background of, I think they are, I was going to say Dark Trooper or Death Troopers, but they might actually be like the Purge Troopers 2.0. You got the Fifth Brother, you got Singer Mantis, you got some TIE Fighters. Now there's two elements on here that are rubbing me a little bit of the wrong way. First off,
Well,
they don't... Oh, go ahead.
just to throw out there before you tell who it's about, before you pointed it out to me, I thought something looked off with the cover myself, and the funny thing is, I was like, I don't know what's missing on this cover. Like, I feel like I don't know. I just felt like the cover, like you said, it looks fine, but to me, it felt like something was missing. And I'll let you continue.
Yeah, our faithful, loving companion droid BD-1 is not anywhere to be found. It's like, wait, what? It's not like he got
Yeah.
killed off in the first game. It's not like we'd even see him in the teaser trailer was released at Anaheim. He's nowhere to be found. So that rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, that guy is arguably the most recognizable thing from the first game. I mean, I know firsthand from a short little survey, if you will, because walking around in my costume, most of the time people point out, oh, the droid, can I see the droid? Like, they don't care about me as Cal. They're looking, oh, that droid is really cool. He's from the game, right? I'm like, yep. So that is like their poster child that they don't have on the game. They sold a Lego life-size kit of BD-1 like recently, last couple months. That thing looks really cool. I constantly see people building that on Twitter, showing off images of that. So I just found it really peculiar how, like, who signed off on this, man? Like, that's your poster child. He's not on the book cover. What?
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I kept looking at that picture when you sent it in our chat, and before you wrote in about BD-1 being missing, like, I was looking at it, I was like, man, what's missing from this picture? Like I said, it felt like something was missing. And then when you said BD-1, I was like, oh dang, he's not in the picture. I guess I don't know, like in my subconscious, I just automatically placed him in the picture and he wasn't there. And then it was just like, oh, I guess he's not there. Okay. I mean, that's literally like you said, arguably he's the most recognizable character from that game. That'd be like not having Grogu on a Mando thing. Like, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
like,
basically, yeah, exactly. And then another thing I got pointed out to me from Dan Grievous. You can look up his YouTube channel. It's really cool compilations of like different like music videos with Clone Wars characters. It's really, really creative. But he pointed out like the Fifth Trooper's design is really awkward and clunky in this because you got the photorealistic renditions of Cal and Night Sister Marin and Sarah and all that, but then you have like the Rebels stylized version of the Fifth Brother, and it's like after coming off of Obi-Wan, it's like it is a little bit striking. Like, it's a creative choice. I mean, obviously this thing was created after, it must have been created before they knew what he looked like. But it's interesting there. I'm just like, oh, that's not the best crossover happening, especially because the guy looks so angular. Like, I know I'm really nitpicking the hell out of this book cover, and it's like going to not mean anything in the long run, but it's just something I wanted to point out.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely. I mean, hey, like when we're not like just pinpointing that out, it is good. Like seeing, I did see a lot of people talking about that cover though. Like I saw that floated around social media a lot, so it's good. Like the game's like out there, you know, like people are talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like I said, this upcoming week, I'm sure we're gonna hear even more about the game. Maybe we'll see some stuff. I'm hoping next week we'll have a nice, good old trailer breakdown for all of you people to enjoy. So I think we might be having a guest joining us right now, right, Ben? Maybe, possibly. Let me
Maybe
try.
someone from the Force.
I'm trying to bring him in. I guess he's not on his computer yet.
Oh yeah, you're good. But yeah, I'll continue about the game. The speaking of Star Wars gaming, for anybody, I saw you having a little discussion back and forth with people on Twitter, Chris. What date was Star Wars Lego the Skywalker Saga coming to Game Pass on Xbox?
Oh yeah,
Was
yeah,
that
yeah.
this week?
That's a good point. December 6th. Yeah, next week they
Yeah.
popped that up on the Xbox Wire. Yeah, it's coming to Game Pass. So if you guys are Xbox gamers and you play a decent amount of video games, you might want to check out Game Pass because it's the best deal in gaming. And I know I sound like a damn infomercial. And the
It
PlayStation
is. I love it.
fanboys are gonna come at me hard and say this guy's an Xbox fanboy. Get him. It's okay. It's just I can't lie. It's great to have. And so
Well,
yeah, it's gonna be included with Game Pass. So anybody looking for a cool game to play with their kids or their friends that has some extended time off this holiday, well, Xbox is there for you, man. They're gonna give you one of the best games of 2022. Honestly, it is like one of the best games I played this year, and I've played quite a few. Yeah. So
oh yeah.
okay, I think
Well,
somebody's jumping in. Oh, who's that? Oh, what's up, villain?
What's going on, fellas? Sorry I'm
Hey,
late.
it's all good.
glad you can make it. Better late than never.
You came in just at the tail end of our Andor discussion. So while the mic is hot, I'm gonna throw it to you, man. Just give us like up to 5 minutes if you want. Just like your thoughts on Andor and just just what you felt about
Characters, all
season
that
one,
stuff.
all that
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Um, Look, when it comes to the overall, I'll start this way. The setting and production value of this show was was really really good. It was one of the best productions of a Star Wars live action show that I know. I mean, besides Mandalorian, but from all the ones that we've gotten thus far, this is probably second. Hell, might be even one when it comes to a lot of elements because they did shoot on location a lot.
Yep.
So production value was legit. It felt like it was a movie budget. Character wise, all the characters actually was very enjoyable. There wasn't really one bad character except for was it how you say his name?
Cyril.
Serial.
Cyril. Yeah, that's how bad I don't like that character.
Ha!
But all the other characters were dope. It was great character development in the sense of Andor where he was to where he is now, and obviously how that's going to lead to Rogue One eventually. I love that particular arc of him. I love Luthen. Luthen Rail was one of these characters that I didn't think I would actually enjoy right away, just because he was sketchy at first, but his character makes a lot of sense in what they're trying to do. Idra and what her development is, I'm looking forward to her in season 2. I'm curious to see where they're going to take her. As for everyone else, I thought the character development was great. It was great to see that this show wasn't afraid to take risk. Now we hear that phrase a lot in a lot of shows about taking risk. That's the best way to expand a property or an IP. This is what The Last Jedi didn't do. Like Andor took risks that were necessary for the story and to push it forward, and it made sense. Like that's why that risk worked. So overall, with this particular show, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was one of the better Star Wars shows. The first 3 episodes for me were, like I said, off. Then as the show was progressing and seeing where they were taking it, I was really liking this. So I'm looking forward to season 2. Yes, was the finale okay? Yeah, it was okay. I think it did its job. I think season 2 will pay that off because then it will lead into the movie. Overall, I really liked this show. I thought it was well done. Tony Gilroy clearly has a good understanding of what Star Wars is and how to expand it. And really, he's not a fan, but that's okay because he was very objective in coming into this property to say, hey, let's do this right. Let's tell the best story we can about this particular character, and in a very important time of the Star Wars lore. So yeah, I thoroughly love the show, and I can say this show is probably very much rewatchable.
Oh, okay. Like, so we had this little bit of a discussion earlier about how Penn was like the first couple episodes for him wouldn't be all that rewatchable. Now, would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
For
agree.
me,
I agree.
for me, basically, Milton, when it comes to it, I think from episode about 6 forward, it's
Yes.
all pretty good rewatchable. For me, like obviously for the story, you want to watch the whole episode 1 through 12. But for me, the first 4 or 5 episodes are almost throwaway, where I'll probably never rewatch them until like Andor season 2, just to like rewatch the whole show.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
episode 6 on to me is super rewatchable. Like you could go and turn on an episode and get something out of it versus like there's nothing in really episodes 1 through 5 where it's like I need to go and rewatch that, or I need to just turn it on as background noise. Because like even with like Book of Boba, we have our complaints about it, or even Kenobi with some of the issues. Mando, there's really no issues, but like even on those other 2 shows, like they have episodes in them where you can just throw them on and rewatch. And Andor, there are some episodes, at least like episode 6 on, you can throw on those episodes and have them on in the background. Um, Especially like the prison episode, I feel like is a good one. Like there's definitely good elements to it where it's like there's rewatchability. I think in the second half of the season.
Yes, I agree with that assessment. I think, like I said, the first 3 episodes for me were very, episode 3 was solid. I think episode 4 was okay after the lead off of that. 5 was decent. 6 actually wasn't bad. I think because it was so choppy. Yes, I would agree
Yep.
with that. But obviously, I think if I had to now, because I have all 12, if I just watched it in like a 3-day span of
Yep.
like each arc, I think it might make sense. It might flow better because we're
Mm-hmm.
not taking breaks. So I agree with that, Ben. And I think when season 2 gets here, when you go back to rewatch 1, I think, okay, we now have that understanding of what 1 was trying to do. So it's just like right now I'm
Well,
rewatching Arrow and Flash right now.
Oh.
And Arrow season
excellent.
4 Arrow season 4 has always been a weird drag, but because we have all 22, it's a better flow when you have all 22. You know how the
Yep.
story's going. So I'm like, okay, it's watchable again once you get all the episodes. But at the time of its live airing, no, it was very just flooded, like cluster or it was
Well,
choppy.
well, Milton, I think with that, not to like rehash mine and Chris's entire discussion, but I think I think one of the issues that came up that almost discovered when we were discussing the show was I think subconsciously, whether it be us three or even a lot of the collective audience that may have had different things with this show, it falls again to me like I'm always the one pointing all the arrows at Lucasfilm's marketing department because I feel like they deserve it because to me they marketed this as a spy action thriller. How many times did you hear that term? And we barely got that in this show. Like we didn't get any of that really from Andor for the most part, and it was mainly
Right.
from Luthen. And I think that was the subconscious like issue with the show, that this show is basically a prequel and now we're going to get the spy action thriller in season 2. I think that's kind of like what we discovered in our discussion where it's like, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have been using that terminology to describe this show leading up to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because Rogue One was very much a spy thriller movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I see what you're saying with that, and that makes sense. I think a lot of shows make that mistake, which
Yep.
it's unfortunate. I mean, hell, Star Wars.
Expectations.
Exactly. And Star Wars been doing that since they took over, or Disney took over, because they said about Phasma in this, great character, and all of a sudden she was nothing.
New Boba
It's
Fett.
like, yeah, like you can't, like Star Wars fans are fickle. So if you tell us something and it doesn't live up to standard, or you don't give us what you're saying you're going to give us, we're going to challenge that. We're going to call you out on it. So yeah, I get it. Like that's on them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys, and I'll leave this last question to all of us, is what do you guys think the lasting impact of season 1 of Andor is going to have on like the Star Wars the timeline? Like, why is this story so special? Why people like to throw this around. Why is this story important to Star Wars? Why did we get this story? What is its lasting impact going to have?
I think it expanded the universe.
Okay.
It expanded the property. I
Mhm.
mean, it's like, listen, did we really need to have Rogue One? No, we didn't. We didn't need to get that. But John Knoll, who decided to say, hey, let's look at that first sentence of A New Hope. What happened? How did that movie start? You know what I'm saying? So like that one sentence launched another inner universe within Star Wars.
And we need to have a new hope.
Yes, exactly. The rebellion just won their first big battle, or however it goes. Oh, what did that look like? And yes, it makes sense at that story need to be told now looking back on it, because like the rebellion didn't just come out of nowhere. How did this get started? Why were people rebelling? Was the empire really that bad? And to see that people were seeing the cracks in the empire and saying, "Hey, this isn't as great as we thought it would be." People thought the galactic republic was bad or was corrupt. No, the empire is worse when it comes to just just how they clamped down everything. They took away individuality. They took away color. They took away just support and love. I mean, you could see the difference from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope. How there's no color in the galaxy.
Oh
There's
yeah.
no differences. There's really no inclusion. To use a current term, when it comes to humans, race, culture, anything you can think of. So I think this story in particular of Andor, and even I'll tie in Rogue One with it, expanded Star Wars, and it gave us new characters that we now love. Andor is now a beloved character, I believe. I think Jyn Erso is a beloved character. I think Saul Guerrero, I wouldn't say is beloved, but he's respected and people really know of him now compared to where he was in Clone Wars. You know what I'm saying? So like Luthen, hopefully.
Hey! I mean, this show. Don't get me wrong. I've been the resident Saul Guerrero hater from Rogue One. I can say that this show made me like him more. I definitely like his character a lot better this show. So I mean, this show, hey, did something positive.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. Like again, you've always been that guy, Ben, about him, and
yeah,
the show kind of it's just like Tales of the Jedi with Dooku. People always thought Dooku was a villain, just a hardcore villain. That show has made Dooku, I wouldn't say beloved, but understood, and say, hey, maybe he was right. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he had a point to do what he needed to do to try to save, the Republic or whatever. So it's like, okay, that's good to challenge our viewpoint as just Star Wars fans and as just movie watchers. Like we can't just get stuck on what these characters were. There had to have been something before that made them what they are now when we first met them. So.
Yeah, the great points for me. It's just in and out of universe point on this whole thing is just like in universe we know we're getting into this at the beginning of the rebellion. We're seeing how the seeds are sown in the fabric of a culture and seeing how the culture is able to rise up, and it's just one of those stories about enough is enough, and like Marva's speech about we've been sleeping, like it's time to wake up. Like that whole sequence just basically encapsulates everything, even with the prison, about the people rising up over the oppressors, and it all that adds to that. But as far as like an out of universe, why is this important to Star Wars? Because this is the first time where, as Milton, I think you put it out, like this is Star Wars taking a risk, taking a chance, and paying off especially well with not dealing with blasters firing every single episode, but using dialogue as kinetic forces to get people engaged. I mean, we keep talking about how we would all sit up in our seats with the Imperial stuff. I mean, at a glance, it's like, oh, that's boring. It's just a bunch of people in white uniforms that are part of a dictatorship just talking about, But no, like the context of these conversations are so fascinating to see these guys conniving against one another. So I like the change in direction of storytelling that Lucasfilm was able to, I believe, able to successfully give us a different tone of a Star Wars live action piece of media, where it's not the hero's journey in the way that we see like Din is with The Mandalorian. It's a lot more with the grounded reality of not dealing with the Force, not dealing with lightsabers. And for me, it actually worked out pretty well for that. So I gotta give them praise for taking out one of the touchstones that is Star Wars and somehow succeeding in doing that.
One thing we do need to mention before we go to the next topic, Milton, your final score, though, you hadn't mentioned it.
For the series as a whole, I want to say, oh man, this is tough because I feel like it's going to be probably around like a 7.5 or an 8.
I gave it an 8. Here's the funny thing. I started at 7.5, and Chris talked me up to 8.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 8. Well, here's the thing, though. I think it's going to be an 8 just because, 7.5 rounds up to an 8, one.
Hey,
But
there you
two,
go.
but two, like, I think as the show went on, it got better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And my scores, you can probably go back and look. I think my scores are gradually going up.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, staying consistent, except for that last one, kind of probably slightly dipped, but it wasn't bad. So I would say an 8's fair. If I say an 8, maybe a low or like a mid 7.5, but probably an 8.
All right, so final score with the Outer Rim Transmission crew, we got 2 8s and a 9. So I would say that's a pretty positive score for.
Oh, yeah, it definitely wasn't Book of Boba Fett bad. I'll say that right now.
I know Chris was probably thinking I was going to bomb it with like a 5.
Yeah. It wasn't Bad Batch throwaway episodes. Like I think an 8's fair. I think a 9's fair. I mean, if someone wants to give it a 10, I can see people giving it a 10 that I think is not deserving of a perfect score. I think there were some flaws. But I think an 8, 8.5, 9 is fair. I say 7.5 to 9 is fair just because there are things that probably were not executed the best. However, this was a different type of Star Wars show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for those of you that are unaware, we're going to be waiting a while for the next season of Andor, as we knew that the first season was in production for about 2 years. So we're going to be revisiting this back forward in 2024 probably. So stay tuned for that long haul. But there's plenty of Star Wars coming down the pipeline. We were talking about Milton about the Mandalorian season 3 getting a premiere date of March 1st. So we're excited to finally have something to pin on the calendar. But something else that's not concrete, but that is very interesting is I'll throw this one to throw our way. Ben, you have a better handle on Instagram and how it all works than I do. And probably Milton does more than me. But you want to talk about this thing that happened last night?
Yeah, all right. So I'm not sure. I know me and Chris were like blowing up our group chat, so I'm not sure how much of it Milton caught. So Daisy Ridley went and posted yesterday onto her story a picture of the Yoda from inside Lucasfilm's offices, like on her story, like and it was a new photo too, mind you, a new photo on her story of that. And this is my thing. Like there's a lot of bullet points here that are like, interesting. For starters, this happens a week after Andor. We're getting all this other Star Wars content. Obviously, yesterday we had all of this other Star Wars news like Mando and the games and all this stuff. And then Daisy Ridley goes and posts that. And then she lets that, because, Chris ended up sending in our group chat. She let that sit all night. She let that sit on her story all night for literally like 12 hours. And then she posted this morning or whatever and was like, oh, nothing saucy happening here. But it's so, I'm feeling so, and she just put she put so nostalgic right now. And then she posted a ton of Star Wars photos. And it's like, wait, why did you post one thing from inside Lucasfilm's offices and then you let it sit for so long? And then it's like, it's like, what, are you like badly covering it up or whatever? So it's just, I don't know. It was weird behavior for starters. Like, it's like weird posting habits. And especially considering if you look on her Instagram, before that, she hadn't posted since like November, I think 1st or 2nd in almost a month. So it's like, for starters, she hasn't posted. And to me, it's like, what, did she fly out there to Lucasfilm to have a discussion? Because the thing is, I heard other people talking about it too. They wouldn't just obviously go and make an announcement about Daisy being back without her being under contract. Was this just the initial meeting like we got in 14 or 15 where you heard about like Mark Hamill meeting with Carrie Fisher and, them talking about getting the gang back together? Is this the initial meeting potentially of Daisy at the Lucasfilm offices? And also another bullet point to throw in with all of this speculation is, again, okay, take it with a grain of salt because we've seen Kathy and everybody at Lucasfilm being consistent. But Kathy literally did just say a month or two ago in that interview, they have projects they're looking forward to past episode 9. And then on top of all of this stuff, whether it be a series or a movie, my thing is I feel like it's probably trending toward a movie, if anything, because then you have Bob Iger coming back into the fold. And what's his big thing? Movies. So it's just like, I feel like a lot's adding up. And then heck, I feel like I think we talked about it 3 or 4 weeks ago on the show, guys, when Hollywood Reporter reported or Deadline reported they're wanting Star Wars to come out with concrete plans and stop announcing movies until they have them concrete. So to me, I feel like a lot of this stuff is just swirling, and then you have Daisy Ridley go and post this on her story after, not being a frequent Instagram user over the past month. So it's like, what is going on there? I mean, I feel like if anything, in summary, I feel like if anything, we're not going to get any announcement anytime soon. Like, this is the earliest, maybe this is like day one of a potential her return, and maybe they were just having their conversations or potential contract talks or something. And whether it be this celebration or it might be Celebration 2024, I think we're going to get the Daisy Ridley's coming back announcement.
Well, guess where Daisy Ridley happens to live and where this next celebration is going to be. It's going to be in England. She's going to walk outside her door and walk to the Excel Center and walk on stage. And here we go, the continuation of Rey's journey in 2025. Here you go, everybody.
So that's something to keep in mind as well. So it's like, yeah, those are just kind of all the like newsworthy or the noteworthy points about this Daisy Ridley stuff. Like, what's your assessment of it, Milton, now that you've kind of heard the overview?
I mean, look, I agree with everything you're saying about Lucasfilm and their lack of marketing, or their screw up of marketing, or their unwillingness to have a plan, and then they announce all this stuff and it's never like concrete. So I agree with all that. Daisy Ridley, because I did see that in the chat. I think it was last night. Was it last night you put that in there?
It was Wednesday night into Thursday.
Yes. And so I took it as she's just there, just visiting. Maybe she had a meeting or two. Maybe she had a meeting, just whatever, talking. And then she saw the Yoda statue, posted it. Then I was seeing other people talk about it. I'm thinking, okay, are they planning on bringing back Rey back? She was a beloved character by younger fans, for what we remember. I could see them wanting to focus the next trilogy on her as the only Skywalker alive. So if
Iger being back too.
Yeah, Iger being back. I know he loved her. Kathleen's supposed to be on the outs for what we've been reading. I can see them bringing her back. I hope that if they bring her back, please have a consistent story of a trilogy. Do not hire 4 or 5 different writers, 4 or 5 different directors, and have it be choppy. Because that's what happened with the sequel trilogy. Like, I feel like the sequel trilogy is just tainted because like the story is so different in a sense of like it's not consistent. So if you want to rebuild, if you want to focus Star Wars on the Skywalkers still, you need to tell a bomb-ass sequel trilogy with Rey and expand that then with whether it's with the Skywalkers or with her as the lead Skywalker, and maybe she gets her Mara Jade character, male version, or hell, if she likes girls, so be it. Like maybe they'll start doing like some Mara Jade type stuff with their love interest, or maybe they'll bring in the Yuzhong Vong and just something. But they need
here's the thing.
They need to tell a consistent story that's strong. It makes sense, and it keeps the fans hooked. Because I'll be honest with you, literally after The Last Jedi, I was just uninterested in where these movies are going. The primary episodes.
Oh, 100%. I completely agree with you on that. Now, my thing is, what if you just go and have her coming back? I mean, how would you feel, Milton and Chris? How would you guys feel on this? What if you bring her back and they announce Jon Favreau's spearheading the trilogy? Like, I feel like they need to do something like that. They need to, because Favreau has film experience. They're obviously, Filoni wouldn't handle something like that. It'd be Favreau. But like, by the time, if you think about something like this, whether it be this year, let's just, all intents and purposes, let's just say they go crazy when Chris is at Celebration and just bring out Daisy and announce we're doing a new trilogy. I mean, we wouldn't get that for till at least 2025. By then, Mando season 4 will be done, most likely. It'll probably be airing in 2024, maybe. So, like, the thing is, by the time that's done, maybe Favreau's moved on to his next big Star Wars project. Maybe it is that. Like, because, like you mentioned, with Daisy, if you're bringing her back, you have to have a good, consistent story. I mean, heck, even if we get a limited, just one-off series of on Disney Plus with 8 episodes of her doing something post episode 9, because my thing is, again, it's hard to trust Kathleen Kennedy because they've been so inconsistent. But she did say, like, a few weeks ago, they're looking at stories post episode 9. And then now we have this with Daisy potentially. So it's just like, maybe they're just in the early talking stages because, you have to have those early meetings before you do anything. And it's just, I don't know. It's just a really interesting thing that popped up. And the funny thing is, like, when I saw that, I literally was just scrolling through Instagram naturally. Like,
wow.
I'm just I was just scrolling through Instagram stories, and I saw, like, it was like Milton's story, and then like Daisy's story was next to his, and I scrolled through Milton's stuff, and then then Daisy's, and I clicked through. I was just when you're scrolling through stories, it's just quick, and I clicked through, and I was like, wait. Daisy really posted a Yoda thing. Let me back up. And I went back to her page and looked at the story again. I was like, what the hell? And I sent it to you guys. And that's literally when I sent it to you. I was sending it to you like live as I was reacting. And it's just like, I don't know. To me, it's interesting because, she posted it and let it sit for like 10 hours, 11 hours before saying anything about it. So it's just like, all right, there's maybe something there. And I mean, who knows, guys? Maybe we get to a point where it's, if she comes back, it'll be the whole like, haha, look, guys, I tried to tease you way back in December or whatever, December of 2022.
Yeah.
And it could be something like that. I mean, heck, we just saw it with Jason Momoa at the beginning of November. It was like November 7th or 8th. He literally posted on his Instagram story and was like, for all you fans of this certain universe, this is going to be, just so you know, this is like the greatest day of my life in terms of like any of these movies. And, mark this day. So it's like, I wonder, maybe we have this with Daisy because, if you think about it too, another thing to throw out there is like, all right, we have Mando, we have Andor, we have maybe Boba season 2. We have Skeleton Crew. What would be the introduction to the theatrical? Like, what would bring the audiences back? Because at this point, they have to do something to bring the audiences back. Because, they jacked things up with the sequel trilogy, and you have to. I mean, say what you want about it, but I mean, it did do some damage to the brand. It's like, to me, what else will they have to do to bring the audiences back? Like, you have to announce, I feel like something, it has to be big. Like, they can't just announce a Chewbacca spin-off movie or something. Like, it has to be something massive. And, like, what's bigger than bringing back and continuing Rey's story? Because, like, for me,
I don't know about that.
Just to throw out there with the sequels, like I had no issue with Daisy's acting. Like, I think she was good in the sequels. It's just her usage, especially in episode 8, was like, whoa, like really off. So it's just, I don't know, a lot of interesting things. Now, Chris, me and Milton have done a lot of breaking down on this. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, first of all, I think if we're looking at any kind of timeline, they don't want to put anything out with the sequel trilogy until Mando's over. They don't want Mando to steal any thunder from if this is going to happen. So they're going to probably wait till at least 2027 or 27 or something like that because they want to make sure the air is clear for that. As far as your question with the movies, I think the last thing they'll do is do another movie that's attached with her as the first movie to come back. Because it has such a sour taste in the mouth of people that they're going to want to start off in the complete opposite direction. That's where David Lindelof and the director that did the Ms. Marvel series. I think they're going to do something either in our far-flung future or something in the past, because it's Taika Waititi thing. The longer we go on, the more I feel like it's never going to happen at this point. So that's definitely where they're going to be going first. So yeah, I think that they're going to she has already said she doesn't want to do trilogies, Kathleen Kennedy. It's going to be, I would like that to be a Disney Plus series. Because I mean, it's not over yet, but I've seen really positive praise, and I've seen the first two episodes of Willow, and it is literally a sequel to the 1988 film by story by George Lucas. And so Lucasfilm's proven that, they don't need a movie necessarily to continue the adventure of a canon story. Like, they could just straight up do 8 episodes like Willow, 45-minute episodes to continue it. Or Andor. Look, Andor is a direct prequel to Rogue One. Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, a miniseries. They didn't make a movie. They just told a story about Obi-Wan, right? So that's in their wheelhouse. And with the way Disney Plus is going, with the way of the movie industry, where it's, I don't know, lately we were talking about how I've been looking forward to more stuff that's on streaming and that isn't a theater anymore. And the large fact of that is with COVID and movie pipelines and all that kind of stuff, with the getting people's butts in seats is a lot harder these days. And each day it's getting harder and harder with just the way the technology has progressed so much, where you're getting cinematic stuff for a lot cheaper than it used to be on TV. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Is like, hey, I mean, if this is going to happen, it's not going to happen for a while. But then again, it's got to be very serious. It's got to be very serious, because you don't fly all the way from England all the way to San Francisco, which is like at least 12 hours. If you're not gonna be serious about this. They could have easily been like, nope, I'm not interested on the phone, and be like, that's it.
It could have been a Zoom call. Why actually be there in person is my thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, they got to be in some type of discussion. Again, I don't know. I would doubt. I mean, then again, like you said, she is from England. So what if they close out Celebration with her, like, I don't know, they do something like cut the lights and have her walk out on stage and, like, have a big surprise. Like, that'd be pretty epic. And then just say coming 2026 or something, or 2025, or a Disney Plus original or something. Like, I just think with her character, like, you brought up a really good point too, Chris. Now that I think about it, the theatrical window, like, yeah, you can't really continue the sequels just yet because of the imagery or the tainted imagery that it's done. So, maybe they will just do like a Disney Plus thing, because like you said, Kathy mentioned they don't want to do like trilogies and that sort of stuff. So, and especially with Iger being back, I mean, just go the Marvel route and start just pumping out movies, like at least once every year, once every couple years. Like, I just think either way, whether it be like Rey or whatever, they have to come back with something to get the audience back in theaters. Because to me, Star Wars still is a theatrical experience. Like, I think, it's like an epic event thing, and it's just a matter of like, what could that be? Or like, heck, even take your series idea, like, give us a Rey series for, I don't know, make it 2 seasons, and then go to episode 10 in 2028.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, do something like that. Like, because I think as well, I don't know about you guys, like, we'll obviously talk about Rise of Skywalker in the future when we get to that. I think with her burying the lightsabers in the sand, they're eventually going to use that story thread someday. Like, they'll go back to that at some point, I think, just because it's like marketing, the Skywalker sabers of Luke and Leia. Like, I think they're going to get back to that one way or another.
I agree. Yeah. I was trying to do a little bit of Lucasfilm talk tonight, but we got off on some really good discussions, so we're gonna have to kind of cut it here for tonight. But maybe in the future, we'll talk more about it.
Should we? Milton, real quick, have you? We'll do it. A couple minute reaction if you have. Have you seen the Indiana Jones trailer?
Yep, I watched it.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so you guys want to do a quick like 5 minute thing on that?
All right.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I'll
start
go.
off with
Yeah, I was
Milton.
gonna say. Hey, I mean, it's Lucasfilm. It's obviously our good old Han Solo back. Like, what were you guys' impressions on Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny,
Yeah.
and the implications for it?
Milton.
I like the trailer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look. I love the Indiana Jones series, and this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, but I didn't mind Crystal Skulls. Like people hate
Me
on
either.
that one. Is looking back on that film is really not horrible. So I don't understand the super hate. Yes, was who was it? Shia LaBeouf, the son.
Yep.
Okay, spoilers, whatever. But overall, I like the trailer. I like what they're trying to do, and you can tell this is their swan song to Indiana Jones. And eventually, they're going to reboot that franchise. 15 years from now with someone else. But it's nice to see Harrison Ford back. It's nice to see him in this different phase of
Mm-hmm.
India. This is pretty much this was the Indiana Jones we saw. I think he came back and did a cameo in the Young Indiana Jones series as like the old Henry Jones.
Really?
Yep.
I remember. Yes, he came
Well,
back.
he
You know what I'm talking about, Ben?
yeah. I was gonna say he came back as like an older one in the Young Indiana Jones series. Like
Yes.
the full series is still out on YouTube for any of our listeners if you want to look at that. Also, a
So
thing to throw out there too, Milton, with your point. Like I read a little thing on where they. It sounds like they got the inspiration. It's from some biblical thing. Basically, long story short, time travel is what it sounds like.
yeah.
Oh.
So which is going to lead to my next point, which I'm glad you brought that up. So it was nice to see that this was an old Indiana Jones in his like swan song years and just teaching and just
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then it was nice to see the de-aged
Oh my
Harrison Ford,
gosh, we got to talk
which I
about
assume
that.
is going to be some type of like after looking at the title, I'm thinking, oh, either time travel or like some type of like he's seeing visions or something mystical, So it's and that he looked good as young
Oh
Indiana,
my
like the
Oh
gosh,
yeah.
yeah.
de-aging tech looked good. So I am I am kind of hyped to see this film. I'm hoping it's good because I really like Harrison Ford and I love this franchise. I hope it goes off with a bang and that we can walk away and say, okay, we have a legit 5 picture franchise with
Mm-hmm.
the show. I might have to go back and revisit and just watch it and binge it again. So I'm hoping this movie pays off. I think it will. I think Lucasfilm can't mess this up.
Yeah, yeah. As far as for me, my history with the Indiana Jones franchise, I'm relatively new. I started watching these back in like 2015 or something. It's been very recent, actually.
Oh,
So that's why the Crystal Skull I didn't really mind it because I didn't have the built-in love for the character at that point of Indiana Jones. So I was like, oh, this is another fun adventure of his. And it's not like I lived with the character for like 30 years and I'm grumpy about him dealing with like ants and monkeys and jumping on vines and surviving nuclear blasts and refrigerators and all that crazy stuff. But for my reaction to this now you have the context of where I'm coming from. My reaction was very positive on this trailer. I just love the different sets, the settings that they have in here. Just when you start hearing Harrison Ford's voice, it brought me back to the Force Awakens trailer, like Chewie, we're home, like that sort of feeling of, oh yeah, it's the old man Harrison Ford, old man Indy, and yeah, the whole way that it actually looks. It looks like it's filmed using cameras from the 80s. It's got that lens to it or that kind of filter where it feels like it's that movie from the 80s. It looks fantastic and I was blown away by the de-aging and it looks like we're going to get some cool like Nazi like smashing action from Indiana Jones once again, which is always great. Never gets old, never gets old. So yeah, I was like, yeah, this is the stuff right here. This is exactly what I wanted to see, Ben.
oh yeah, 100%. Like when I saw this trailer, it was like, man, it feels like we're back in Indiana Jones again. It just brought back all those fun feelings of the show of the movies. Excuse me, like you know, it just had that vibe. Like Harrison still has got it for him being almost 80. He's 79 right now, so like him being almost 80, it's crazy. But but yeah, like I just think it looks really good for the fact. For one, it looks like an Indiana Jones movie because that was my number one concern with this movie going into it was, is it gonna feel like we've done a lot of feel talk, whether it be with Andor and Star Wars, if it feels like Star Wars. To me, this feels like Indiana Jones because I was concerned about it because I mean, as we all know, Spielberg decided to drop out of the movie, so it was like, when you have Spielberg's like magic, basically, like his style is so stylistic, and it looks like they captured a similar style to that, which is super nice, and of course, like the de-aging tech looks amazing. The fact that it's potentially based off of like a biblical type artifact, I think is really good because to me, as you both mentioned, I think it's because we're younger, but I didn't really have that big of an issue with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because I was, at the time I was like 14, so I enjoyed it for what it was, and like my only issues with it, really, it's just I can understand where the critique I've seen of that movie basically is just like obviously like your corny stuff, but whatever. It's just the fact of people can buy into Ark of the Covenant and Raiders. People can buy into a Lost Tribe and in the Temple of Doom, and then people can buy into the Holy Grail and the Last Crusade because of like the biblical and real world implications of those objects and those tribes and things. Like people at that time, especially in 2008 or 2007, people were having an issue with it, I think, because back then, even just 16 years ago, people weren't as open-minded to UFOs and aliens and things like that. So I think that's why a lot of people at that time had issues with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think if you release that movie, I mean, obviously Harrison Ford would be old. If you release that movie nowadays, I feel like people would have responded to it much better. Like if they would have released it in 2021 or 2022. So yeah, I think them getting back to the roots of like going like the biblical artifact route, I think is really nice. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how much of this is going to be young Harrison Ford versus old. And I'm interested to see how the tech gets pushed because, we saw it in Mando with Luke. Now we're seeing it with Harrison in this. I mean, this has implications for us guys as Star Wars fans, major implications in my opinion, because if this goes over well with Harrison Ford, like say if out of the 2.5 hour movie, say it's 2.5 hours, what if an hour and a half of it is young Indy and it's believable? That means we have unlimited possibilities for Star Wars because that means we're basically just watching young Han Solo. Like we could get a actual Harrison Ford Han Solo or an actual Mark Hamill Luke thing or whoever it may be. Like even a young Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan, like anything really. Like it's just crazy what they're doing with it. And I think if this goes over well and like it's believable, this could have major implications for us as Star Wars fans as well, on top of Indiana Jones fans.
Yeah. Certainly. And, well, since we're already talking about other Lucasfilm properties, I'll just talk quickly about Willow. Did you get a chance to watch this, Ben? I know you said you were going to try to watch the movie or something.
So I didn't end up watching the movie. I just saw, what's his name? Friend of the show, Steven Schindler, post about how he hadn't watched the movie. And he just watched the show because it had a little recap thing at the beginning. So I was like, you know what? I'll just watch it. I'll watch the first episode of Willow. And my quick review of that, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I hadn't seen the first Willow movie because it just never was on my radar. My radar growing up was basically Star Wars, Jurassic Park, James Bond, Indiana Jones, Transformers. That was it. Basically that. Hey, shout out to Transformers because Rise of the Beast looks amazing, by the way.
Didn't see the trailer. Yeah, I know you tagged me.
Yep, but yeah, Willow though. I hadn't seen the movie, so I went into this movie with show with no preconceived notions of like whatever biases toward the old thing, and I think it was really entertaining. It was good. It hooked me on the story. I was surprised at some of the illusions they had in there, just because it was like animated and stuff. Like I didn't expect like some of the like just the story overall,
Uh-huh.
it hooks you. It hooks you with like the lead character like getting taken and stuff. What's his name? Or like one of the lead characters, like, is his name literally Eric? I
Yep.
think.
The Prince Eric. Yep.
Yeah, Prince Eric. Yeah, I mean him getting taken. I think that it was a good way of doing things because they built him up enough in the episode to like
Mm-hmm.
have you invested in that character.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. And then like just some of the different things, like for it being like Disney Plus, like I didn't expect some of the um I guess you would say like adult type allusions in the show because like they cut like they perfectly cut like basically it was implied there was like a sex scene that had just happened, and it's like wow, they actually like alluded to that in this show.
Yep.
And I'm like what in the world, I'm like what in the world am I watching, like because I didn't know, I'd never seen the first Willow or the Willow movie, so I didn't know what to expect. I don't know what's in the first movie, but yeah, so like just like things like that, them adding like adult themes, them adding in an interesting story with the prince getting took, them doing a good job on like the lead girl. I'm terrible with these names, but like I just think it's a really good, interesting show, and the episode length. I don't know how long it was, but it felt like it was like 45 minutes or
Yeah,
something. It was a good
yeah,
length
yeah.
of an episode. Yep. And I think it was just really good, and I think it's worth the watch. Like if anybody's thinking about watching something or getting into a new series, I would recommend giving it a watch because I'm probably going to watch the second episode of Willow tonight or tomorrow night, most likely. Because again, my thing is, as I'm sure you both know and our listeners know, like when it comes to like our in between time with Star Wars, it's like okay, what show am I going to watch in the meantime until the
Yep.
next Star Wars project comes out? So Willow is going to kind of like fill that void until Bad Batch, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see where the show goes, and I can't wait for next week because like I said, I'm going to catch up over the weekend.
Yeah. Milton, have you watched the original movie 1988's Willow?
Oh God, I don't think I have. I think I've seen clips. I just never. No,
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, I think I've just seen clips, but not the whole movie.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been taking a lead, like in my mind, like I've been asking people at work, like, because they're like, we talk movies and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm watching this show Willow, and like 9 out of 10 people are like, huh, what's Willow? So, and so most people, this is the dark horse at Lucasfilm, and I always wanted to have a chance of watching like other things at Lucasfilm. George Lucas was in charge of the story. This is a fantasy series analogous sort of to like Lord of the Rings at the time, right? This is out before obviously Game of Thrones and George R. R. Martin. So this is, Lord of the Rings is the best way of comparing it, but not really. What Willow does is it's got a lot more humor than any of the other contemporary fantasies. It's got a level of cheese to it that you just have to accept.
Yeah.
It's definitely got some like really just like the humor is just very funny, and it's out there humor. But at its core, the original Willow, it's like a fellowship of people. They're going on a journey with this baby to deliver this baby over to the humans because and again, I'm brand new to this. I just watched the first movie last weekend, so like Ben, I'm not very sure on these words. I started listening to a podcast about Willow earlier in the week.
You're not posting Willow canon videos just yet.
Yeah, exactly. But you have like the people of Warwick Davis's stature. They are on this other end of the world, and he finds this baby. That is, the baby is the key to dismantling the power of this queen, and this queen is obsessed with finding this prophesized baby, so she captures all the pregnant women and basically like gets these babies and looks to see if they have this tattoo on their arm, and if they do, then she'll basically kill the baby and she'll be safe. So that's how Willow opens, with the midwife of this actual baby like having a heart and getting this baby out of the clutches of the queen under her nose, and that's where it ends up in the hands of Warwick Davis's Willow, Ufgood character, and that's where the journey begins.
Well, that's another thing to throw out there. I'll let you continue in just a second. Yeah, wow, gosh, we're excited about a show. It's good, and it's not even Star Wars, but one really good aspect of this show, definitely for anybody as well. Watch the first episode because the ending of it will hook you.
Oh yeah, both episodes 1 and 2, they have a great cliffhanger that makes you immediately want to watch the next episode. So they orchestrate that. But going off, so basically this story, in a nutshell, Willow and the series is about destiny. It's about rising up to the occasion. Willow is a farmer, and it's very much like a George Lucas story, right? You have Willow, which is basically a farmer, like Luke Skywalker, that is trying to become a Jedi, essentially, because he wants to be a sorcerer. And Ben, I'm telling you gotta watch the movie now because it's gonna give you so much stuff like context. Like, I'm sorry, but like that 2-minute recap does not give the film justice because
is it on Disney Plus or another service?
Oh yeah, it's on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'll watch it.
Yeah. We'll have our review of Willow next week, everybody. No, but anyway, but I mean, basically he sets the archetypes. Then you have Mad Mardigan, played by Val Kilmer, who is the Han Solo type of the story. So you can see George Lucas's fingerprints all over the original Willow. It's very much like this large destiny, this mythos, this grand adventure that's similar to Lord of the Rings in certain aspects, with like a dark fantasy vibe and a lot of cool creatures like you would see from Return of the Jedi and stuff. So yeah, fast forwarding to Willow's episode 1 and 2, what's great about them is they contain all the vibes of the original movie, and I'm happy that they have that cheesiness to it. They didn't just try to say, oh, we're like the modern DC. We're going to make this all dark and gritty. We're going to go into deep end. It's going to be epic dark fantasy. No, and what's great is it really there's been a lot of great fantasy that came out this year between House of Dragons, Rings of Power, and this stands on its own as its own unique entity. And it definitely feels way different than those, but it's able to still be propped up to having really great set design, really great costume design, environments, really great colorful characters. Borgir or whatever the prisoner guy is really cool, who is a squire of Mad Mardigan. You have some of the original cast, Scorsha, the original actress, is back playing the queen. And then you have like one of the friends of Warwick Davis's Willow is there as well. It's just a good time, and it's all about the series. There's a lot of good themes so far to the series. I'm very surprised by the themes. Like, a lot of the characters, most of the characters are very rich. Like those two kids, the one daughter, right? She's having to marry off to this kid, but then she doesn't really. It's an arranged marriage, so it's kind of like Mon Mothma's situation with her daughter. She's like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do this adventure instead. So it's like taking your own reins and your own destiny, your own fate, and stuff about. It's very much, and you guys are probably gonna not like this sentiment, Last Jedi-esque. You got Willow. It's like, I'm not watching this now. He's like,
cancel the show.
But here we are. So Willow's been away for like 20 years. Last we seen him, he's got the book. He's gonna be doing the magic. And it's the classic story of the hero seeking out the masterful wizard for help. And you have Willow that has kind of gone underground and is not the best wizard at this point.
Or actually, let's not say Last Jedi so we don't get a negative association with it. Or it's more like Luke going to Dagobah with Yoda more retired.
But yeah, and the main character of the Willow series gives me major Luke Skywalker and Rey vibes well. And I'm not going to go into any further than that because, but I will say, just give it a chance. Give it a chance. They have 2 episodes out. Like I said to Ben, I do recommend watching the movie first for more context. And it's a good, feel-good movie anyway to watch. It's not like you're doing homework. It's actually a really entertaining movie. So there's our 2 cents on stuff that's happening at Lucasfilm. And just one final thing about our discussions here at the back half of this episode. I'm just happy to see that Lucasfilm is stretching its legs out there, or flexing its muscles, I guess is the correct phrase, because they are not just Star Wars. And I want to see them do more than just Star
Well-
Wars all the time. I like the fact that they have a fantasy series, they have like a modern alternate history series, and a science fiction fantasy series. Like they have all their bases covered, and hopefully Willow gets renewed for another season. I know. Oh, and I got to mention this as well. The Willow series has a lot of Star Wars creators and actors in it. So first off, you have Aaron Kellyman playing Jade, who is like the friend and the knight of the princess. Then you also have Eunice Swantanamo, who plays Chewbacca in the recent movies. He's playing one of the basically like the four horsemen of the apocalypse type of people, which are very good designs, by the way, that are made by Neil Scanlon, who worked on Solo and Andor and a couple other things. He makes the creatures. You also have, obviously, Warwick Davis. I mean, Wicket, all the other little side characters in Star Wars. Then you have John Kasdan, who wrote Solo, Star Wars story with his father. And then Ron Howard, who directed the original Willow, is the executive producer. So, yeah, the Star Wars fingerprints are all over this thing. It's like a Solo reunion, this show.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, for one final thing. Okay, guys, give me a one-word answer. If you could see, we're talking about Lucasfilm doing these different projects and things. If you could see Lucasfilm do a different type of genre from Star Wars or Indiana Jones, what would it be? For me, comedy.
Screw it. Horror.
Mystery.
Hey, there we go.
All right, horror, mystery, and comedy. There we go. I mean, because I do have some of those episodes, like, for instance, like some of those Clone Wars episodes with the zombies and all that kind of stuff. That was pretty cool, right? So, yeah, so there you go. That's our little discussion. If you want to hear us talking more about Lucasfilm, let us know in the comment section below, and maybe we'll have like 5-minute like Willow discussions on every episode or something like that. It could be fun. But yeah, as far as this week, I'm going to be playing World of Warcraft Dragonflight, trying to get to level 70. And other than that, not much else. Like I said off the top of the show, I have my reviews for the High Republic Convergence, the latest novel in the High Republic Phase 2, as well as a look at one of the short stories that came out in Insider Magazine 215 for the High Republic Phase 2. What are you guys going to be up to?
I'm going to a rap concert tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to see Nelly.
Oh my gosh.
Dang, I was just listening to him this morning.
I don't know if I should admit this, but I guess I have to now that I put it out there. I think that was like next to Smash Mouth. That might have been the first CD I ever bought. Was like his hit CD.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Me of all people listening to Nelly. But it was on the radio all over the place. Like, yeah, I like this. This is good. It's good.
It's funny.
Man, that's awesome. That's going to be a blast, man.
It's going to be hot. I can't wait. It's going to be tight.
Yeah, I've been trying to get out to more festivals. I keep seeing like every other week there's like a new like crazy lineup festival with stuff that I want to see, and then I realize, I'm going to Disney World this year or next year, and then I'm also going to Europe, so I really can't be spending frivolously because I got to save.
Yeah, it's only a few months away, guys, but yeah, for me, nothing too crazy, nothing like going to a concert, that's for sure. More like just probably watching the second episode of Willow, probably going to watch the movie of it, just because I don't have much going on tomorrow night, so probably just going to be watching those things, catching up on those, and watching sports, and then just getting ready for another week of getting back to the fitness grind. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Milton, if you weren't here, basically, I've been dealing with some like little strains here and there, so I took the last couple weeks off lifting, and now like I finally figured out a good workout split for me, so now it's like finally back to the groove of things, and it's like I can finally get back to lifting consistently. So, that's all I'll be up. Yeah, that's all I'll be up to this weekend and leading up into our next week's episode. And for me, if you want to find me talking about this sort of stuff, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBenMaynard. There
you go. Milton?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Milton7Weber. on Twitter at Milton Weber 7. But yeah, this weekend I'll be at the concert tomorrow, and hopefully watching the Eagles on Sunday.
Hopefully, you're like a diehard fan. I would imagine you're gonna watch
it just
through
depends
hell
when
or
we get
water.
back. That's all it is, dude. It's just waiting on my people to get me back here in time.
You got to be like my father. He DVRs Eagles, and he'll be like, "No spoilers."
Yeah, I have it saved. I have it saved on here, but I get the alerts because the fantasy. I play fantasy football.
Oh,
so
yeah.
shoot!
I don't know what's gonna happen, but I have it on my phone too. So if I need to watch it on my phone on my way home, I will.
There you go.
So there you go. For Milton, for Ben, for Chris, aka Starrapter. This was Outer Rim Transmission, episode number 85. We hope you all enjoyed the show. Join us back next week for maybe some video game trailer breakdowns with Jedi Survivor coming out around the corner, getting the buzz out of the Game Awards. Most likely going to happen. But until next week, that's going to do it for us here. Thanks for watching and transmission.